Mohammed Patel wins here.
Other than Rd.2 Simracing.
Oh, he's done it!
Look at these two go!
He's going to do it! His first victory!
The World Championship is done.
What a race it's been.
Well, as another thrilling day of racing comes to a close, we've had fantastic racing seen up and down our ladder, all heading once again to the climax of the day with the World Championship. Last time out, there was late race drama. Noah Roivers had a brake failure, putting a solid end to the Netrex podium shutout. Still, Colin Spork took his first ever victory for Unicorns of Love in the World Championship. Jan Vosnitzer with his first World Championship podium in second place. It's up to everyone else to match their speed and consistency of the historic outfit on its full return to form. Today's action is a return to Malaysia, a circuit which featured on the calendar in 2021, but unfortunately we couldn't race here due to technical issues. The last time we properly raced here at this venue, it was the closest race we had ever seen. Michi Hoyer taking the win over the then one-time world champion of Rd.2 Simracing by just 0.064 of a second to open the 2020 year. This time, who knows what is on the horizon as we get racing once again in the Formula SimRacing World Championship, as it's time for round 2 and the Malaysian Grand Prix. As we'll stream this live both here on FSR's YouTube as well as with our broadcast partners VCO eSports across Twitch and YouTube itself. A big shout out to the sponsors of Masita Esports as well as the now welcomed return of SimLab and 3D Wrap in the commentary booth, same as it was a couple of weeks ago at San Marino. It's myself, Lewis McGlade, Ewan O'Leary, alongside with the assistance of Cam Roger down in the virtual pit lane and Felix van Delft running the broadcast as always. Ewan, let's be honest, we've had domination from the likes of Burst, Twister, Precision, ACR Zack Speed and so many more in the World Championship. Is this now Netrex's time to dominate once again?
Well, it's a big question, and for the moment, I don't think we've quite seen enough evidence to suggest that that will be the case. Of course, domination is very difficult to achieve, and they're going to need to do it over a much longer, extended period of time than they have currently. But you're right; they're certainly in form at the moment. They're doing a fantastic job, and it was a little bit of a surprise 1 week ago or 2 weeks ago, excuse me, to see them doing so well. But who knows what they can do this time around, really. It all remains to be seen, and we're at a fantastic circuit to be going racing once again. We've missed it off the calendar, it has to be said, last coming here a couple of years ago, and we miss it on the real life F1 calendar as well, so it's good to be here.
Do we? I typically don't like this circuit. We had a discussion with this on Saturday morning for a couple of us as commentators, although we never were in the booth at the same time, but we were ripping into some racetracks. I do not like this track to drive. However, that race in 2020, I was going into it very sceptical. I was not super pleased to see this one back on the calendar. What a race it was. It was absolutely superb. And Michi Hoyer with a move around the outside of the final corner on Rd.2 Simracing and on the harder tyres, proving that this is actually a very good racetrack when you when conditions are equal. Last time out when we were racing at San Marino, Colin Spork had pole position from memory. That's not even true. It was Dennis Jordan at the last moment, wasn't it? By a very, very tiny margin, just 2,000 a second over Jan Vosnitzer. Only transferred that into a podium spot, which only was courtesy of Noah Roivers falling off at the end of the race. Strategy was a bit all over the place with who was running, what kind of tyre strategy. This round out, I wonder how much they've learnt from the last round and if it's kind of going to be a similar scenario with San Marino or whether there's going to be complete differences on that strategy challenge and who's going to be challenged for pole.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the strategy, I think it's going to be completely different here, really, because we noticed last time that part of the problem for all of these guys was actually getting through traffic at Imola because it's such a narrow circuit, such a difficult thing to do, which is get through there, of course. Around here, it's a bit easier. Don't want to say easy by any stretch, but it is easier at the very least, particularly down into turn number 1 and the final turn, the big main opportunities, of course, but there are a number of half opportunities elsewhere as well. So that part of it will be different. However, it didn't really matter what circuit we were at last season. There was a very set strategy, and I wonder if that's going to develop again over the 2022 season.
Well, of course, there's only one way to find that one out, and that's by joining us all the way through this championship, which should be an incredible run. We'll see Tom Oldenmenger come down towards the line. It's currently Alex Siebel on that pole position, the teammate of Dennis Jordan within the Oracle Red Bull Racing eSports camp. Oldenmenger only good enough for 11th. Of course, there's been a bit of change within the Burst eSports camp for this round, unfortunately, and we do wish him all of the best in his recovery. Of course, Mitchy Hoyer didn't take part in the the Virtual Endurance Championship, not the World Endurance Championship. We've got taken a big step up if that was the case. The Virtual Endurance Championship yesterday on Saturday at Sebring. Not taking part in the World Championship today either, as recovering from COVID, which is obviously a rough deal. Says he's feeling somewhat all right, but massive headaches and trying to keep focused is a nightmare and such, so do not blame him on that one to take a little step aside, especially after how things were at the last round at San Marino, being balked off the road, I think is the best way of putting it. Got slapped around a little bit at Imola. Obviously replaced this time by the return of David Marocek, which obviously we know is in the World Championship, being a very fast driver indeed.
He is, and he'll certainly be attempting to do something here today. I feel like he may struggle a little bit looking at the times so far, though, because obviously he's not quite been practicing like the rest of them will have been throughout. So he may struggle to just pick this one up and be quite as quick as we're used to seeing him. However, he's still going to put in a fairly solid performance, you would imagine. And speaking of solid performances, Alex Siebel is doing just that at the moment, isn't he? Currently on top of the standings with 4 minutes to go, 30.6 at the moment, just a tenth or so ahead of Roybers and Brackstock and so on and so on. So a little bit of a shaken up order compared to what we saw last time. But Dennis Jordan left it very late 2 weeks ago, so you never know, something similar could happen this time.
He has had a pole position, has Alex Siebel, in his World Championship career. It was last year in the USA, obviously the the start rather of the Triple Crown that we had inside all of the FSR World Championship and the career ladder type thing of course with the academy and with pro. We had the Triple Crown in all of them, where we went racing at the Brickyard at Indianapolis, of course at Le Mans, and then on the streets of Azure. A great feature to the calendar, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. And took victory at the Brickyard, his first World Championship victory. Looking to back that one up here. What a superb lap we are seeing from Alex Siebel right now. Purple Sector 1, Purple Sector 2, absolutely flying. The Sector 1, there have been a couple of sectors that have been a little bit faster from others, but none on their actual flying lap, just the odd little one here and there. That second sector, though, is absolutely phenomenal. Across the line to secure an even better time and to move himself onto a 30.602, 0.14 of a second clear of Noah Roivers at the front. Janis Brackstock did seem to have a little bit more pace in the tank, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Siebel might even be a little bit disappointed that he wasn't able to push that margin out even a little bit further, actually, judging by his first two sectors. Don't think the last one quite went as well as he was hoping for, maybe. But it's still a fairly handsome margin. He's got a tenth and a half over Roivers, but that can all change very quickly, of course. And here is Roivers with what is going to be his last lap. He's not going to have time for another one. Unless he does two in a row, which would be unprecedented, really. We don't really say, and this is going to be the last lap altogether by the looks of things, or very nearly, because he's gone for a spin coming out of turn 4. So Siebel looking very strong at the moment and might not be caught.
Yeah, honestly, looking a little bit too strong at the moment for the rest of the contingent. Qualifying not quite done for the likes of Dennis Jordan, but is in the pit lane, departing it now to begin the final stint. A reminder as to how qualifying works within the Formula SimRacing World Championship. They have just 3 laps in this session. It's a circuit which is just yourself, but you only get 3 timed laps. It means that you really do need to find a way of absolutely perfecting it. Tom Oldenmenger across the line, around about a second off of pole, but still no further improvement there, even though having a slightly faster second sector. Janis Brackstock's first sector, though, a 23.811. That is absolutely superb. Faster by a fair margin, around half a tenth than Alex Siebel. Absolutely on it.
He is absolutely on it, and he always seems to be in these qualifying sessions. Very, very good qualifying, pretty decent racer as well, let's not forget. But what can he do today? That's the real question. Breaking late down into the hairpin. Now, very tricky traction zone coming up here. Uphill, a little bit bumpy, and you start going around a corner as well at turn 10, and then you've got to find the apex of turn 11, which is not easy, as just demonstrated there. Braxuk missing it ever so slightly. He is still up, though, on his lap time. Finding a quarter of a second to overhaul Siebel is going to be a tricky one here, but he's going to give it a good go by the looks of things. Late apex for that penultimate turn, and then a big run onto this back straight to see where he can get up to. Matt might still be the front row for him here.
Yeah, the Hungarian driver, like I said, he's had plenty of sort of splashes within the World Championship, including a couple of pole positions, departs that final corner and runs his way down towards the line. This should be the end of his session with just 28 seconds left to go. It is good enough for pole position by almost a tenth of a second. Superb. That first sector did all of the work there for Janis Brakshock. The likes of Alex Siebel still on a lap, though. This will be their final runs of the session. We still have final runs potentially coming in for the likes of Noah Roivers, Carlos Martin, Dennis Jordan. Basically everyone up towards the front still has left a final run for this moment of the session, because of course, why would you get them all out of the way straight away? Sometimes, as much as it's not a particularly long session, you do need to have a bit of a breather.
You do, but it's gone. Siebel's gone off the road, and that is not going to be pole for him in that case. So at the moment, Braksuk looking very strong all of a sudden. Wasn't expecting him to overhaul Siebel there, but a great final lap from him, and he might just about hold out here. Dennis Jordan left it late at Imola. He's going to have to leave it late again here if he wants to take pole position. And he hasn't been fantastic in the first half of this session, really. Only fifth at the moment and nearly half a second down. So he's really going to have to pull something out of the bag here, and not improving on his second sector at all there. So it's looking very unlikely he's going to be able to move up very far.
I do like myself some stats, and always like to look back on historic achievements. As David Marocek's that moves up inside sixth place. Sandor Callis, though, up inside the top five. Superb move to get ahead of Dennis Jordan, who comes around the final corner. The last time Janis Brakshock had a pole position, a bit of a snap from Dennis Jordan. We'll see this time across the line and see if there is any improvement, as we're seeing some. It is good enough to move him up into third place despite that snap. Really good improvement in the final sector. The last time Janis Brakshock had a pole position, guess who was second? It was Alex Siebel. It was the German Grand Prix of 2021, and it was 8,000ths of a second.
Yeah, they don't often. There isn't much separating these two quite often, and it's not proven to be the case again here at 71 thousandths of a second this time, which is really not very much either. So Braksuk very strong once again. The Red Bulls in attendance once more, and Jordan obviously will be hoping for a better start than he had at Imola, where he fell through the field like a stone in the first few laps. But Braksuk with a great late lap there for Arnaud's competition to take his third World Championship pole position.
Yeah, number 3, like I said, the first one of the year, the first one since that pole position at the German Grand Prix in 2021 that Michi Hoyer ended up going to take victory. Alex Siebel directly behind, and alongside on that front row with Dennis Jordan. Late qualifying improvements. To be fair, late qualifying improvements were quite a lot. They were moving all over the place. Sandor Callis was inside the top 5 in the final moments, but he gets moved down to 7th. Noah Roivers, Carlos Martin and Colin Spork for the Netrex and Unicorns of Love contingent, obviously all sort of sister teams. Colin Spork, your championship leader, just ahead of Sandor Callis. David Marocek on his return to the World Championship, just ahead of Laurent Kiersmakers for Edge Esports, and then the teammate of Sandor Callis, Schutz, just inside the top 10. Behind them, Jan Vosnitzer and Ivan Leonov and Robin Panzar, Jake Denahan, Damien Skovron, Adam Rainey, Tom Aldermenga, Robin Pignataro and Liam Rance, the final ones within that qualifying session. The only driver that is missing, or the only team that is missing a second driver, is the TR powered by Geeks Energy, missing their second driver after retirements from them in the previous round. We'll take a look at the championship standings to understand how things are unfolding. Of course, a new point system within inside the World Championship this year. Colin Spork, obviously this is just the race order from last round, so it'll become a bit more dynamic after this one, but it is 30 points for Colin Spork. We can understand how those points are. Jan Vosnitzer, Dennis Jordan, Alex Siebel and Ivan Leonov, that top 5. There were a lot of surprises in this, isn't there, Ewan? Like Dennis Jordan and Alex Siebel, we were kind of expecting. Of course, Michi Hoyer, just 6th place. Unfortunately, going to move down a little bit further after this round, you would expect, after unfortunately not being here. But Colin Spork and Jan Vosnitzer being right up there, that is a bit of a shock.
It is a little bit of a shock, but looking at this again after having a couple of weeks to digest all of this, it's not as shocking as I was feeling at the time, to be quite honest, because if you think about the World Championship in its entirety, it takes a lot to be up there by the end. Now, if this is the order, what it looks like in something similar by the time we get to the final round, then it will be a real shock. But over just one race, it's not a massive surprise to see Connor Book snatching a win. Once again, I will be surprised if he is challenging up there for the title by the end of this, but I suppose you never know. The likes of Dennis Jordan, Alex Sewell being third and fourth, strong opening positions for them, and I don't think they're going to be too worried at all with the performance of the rest of them. As I say, it all depends on how it really runs down as we go through this season, and obviously today is a continuation of that.
Now, there is one driver missing from this top end of the championship that we would expect to see. Of course, Noah Roivers with that late race retirement. Big shame for Noah. It's not a long season, just 10 rounds, and to recover from that is going to be tricky.
It is, but he seemed in very good spirits about it, to be quite honest, afterwards. Saying that at least it was entertaining to watch, which is not the reaction that most people would have to a late break failure, to be quite honest. But yeah, that's he wasn't just saying that for the live stream to look like a gracious. Gracious in defeat, as it were. He was just generally kind of very carefree about it, which was a little bit surprising to see, but quite refreshing as well.
Yeah, we do like to catch up with our drivers, obviously, post-race, and that one, despite not finishing on the podium, we still managed to have a little bit of a chat. Now, typically, this could be the time in the broadcast where we'd switch over to a Michi Hoyer hot lap. Unfortunately, not able to take part in this, and so obviously hasn't prepared one. However, we do have a solution to the problem. Of course, Cameron Roger is throwing it around the lap. He is in warm-up right now, so this is a live lap, so we'll hold our breath with it. He's just coming to the final corner. Cam, talk us through a lap. He's muted his microphone. That's fantastic. That is a top-tier effort from Cameron Roger. We will watch the lap anyway. Of course it was. I think Cam's figured it out.
So I'm going down the front straight into this first corner, which is very difficult, but probably the best overtaking opportunity on the track, into a double hairpin section, which comes out to turn 3. This is going to be quite an interesting point of the race, because you can maybe use a bit of cheeky push to pass to get a move down here into turn number 4, which is a sort of uphill braking zone. You don't really want to touch the curbs, unsettles the car a lot before you now come up the hill towards this very fast turn 5 and 6, almost flat out, even with a bit of race fuel once we go through the first couple of stints. Then up towards this double right-handed corner, very fast, but you have to keep the speed, avoid the bumps, try and take it as flat out as you can on the exit before a short straight down into this hairpin, which is potentially an overtaking opportunity, but it's very difficult. It's so slow speed, lots of steering angle, and on the exit you can't quite get full power through this kink. Then up towards this third sector, very tricky through these corners. They're all a little bit awkward, a little bit not in your favour before we come to this really flat out chicane sequence up to this breaking point where you can never really see the apex, and then out onto the back straight. Once again, DRS open, a bit of push to pass as well, trying to get the run down towards this final corner where we saw Michi Hoyer take his first ever victory 2 years ago. Can someone repeat that today? We'll have to find out, as I missed the apex to come around the final corner onto the other DRS zone to finish the lap, and hopefully all the drivers can do a bit of a better job than I just did.
I mean, that wasn't a bad lap, was it, Ewan? He did all right there, despite muting the microphone at the start of it.
The pressures, all the eyes were on him. It was on live, and yeah, he did a good job. So hats off for that. Yes.
Yeah, well done. We'll obviously see the starting order once again in a few moments, and we'll catch up with Cam through various points of this race. Obviously, we need to kind of understand what's happening on strategy and stuff. But either way, thank you, Cameron Rogers, to start. I quite like the live lap there. We might need to get Michi Hoyer to start doing those. Just rather than having a pre-recorded video, just jumping in here and having a chat with us when he's doing the race, or maybe we just pick a random driver every now and then. That'd be good fun.
I don't know.
I quite like that.
For us, yeah, but I don't think everybody else would agree to that. To be quite honest, people trying to get in the zone at this stage, especially Michi Hoyer, who'll be likely trying. Especially if he was here, he'll be disappointed to miss this race in particular. Of course, having won here before.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair though, wasn't it 2019, 2020 maybe, when Scott McLaughlin did that lap at Phillip Island where he annoyed all of his team he just jumped into the in the practice session, and they were having a little bit of a chat with him on his out lap, and he was like, "I can take you here for a lap, guys," and so it was to be honest, it was pretty sick, and so I think why not have a bit of fun with it.
Yeah, well, why not? We'll see what we can do about that. But yeah, the press is all on though, isn't it? when we're doing it live, because if you crash off, for example, then it's a bit of a head in hands moment. But thankfully Cam kept it on the road, and yeah, it went all right. So yeah, maybe that's something for the future. But yeah, these guys will just be getting themselves ready now, to be honest, and yeah, seeing what they can do throughout this race. It's going to be a long one once again. See what kind of new car is still a bit new to everybody. The strategy certainly new to everyone. So it's still a fair few unknowns, even though we're not at the start of the season anymore.
No, but still, we are always stepping into the unknown with cars like this. As we move over into the race session, the race will be beginning. They're about to start their formation lap with 56 laps on the clock. We'll see who's going to come out into victory a bit later on for the Malaysian Grand Prix. Janus Brakshock then will start this race from pole position for our Arnage competition with Alex Siebel and Dennis Jordan, the Oracle Red Bull Racing eSports cars, directly behind. Noah Roivers for the NetRex P1 Sim Grand Prix starts from 4th. Behind him, it's a couple of teammates and assistants for him as Carlos Martin and Colin Spork lock out the third row of the grid for Unicorns of Love. Of course, our race winner in Colin Spork from last round, Sander Callis and David Marotchek in 7th and 8th spot. Laurent Kiersmakers for Edge Esports from 9th, and the final position inside the top 10 is Zolt Schutz for Ground Effect. So double top 10 for Ground Effect in that qualifying session, just ahead of Jan Vosnitzer, the podium sitter last round out, Ivan Leonov in 12th position. Behind that, Robin Panzar, Jake Denahan, and then Damien Skovron, Adam Rainey in 16th position, the last driver within 1 second in that qualifying session. The final two runners being Tom Oldermenger and Robert Pignataro from that session. Ewan, what can we expect from this one?
I think we're going to see something very similar to what we saw at Imola, which of course was a very exciting race, a bit of a strategical one, but we don't mind that. It was very entertaining. I think what is going to be different though from 2 weeks ago is the overtaking. I already mentioned it a little bit earlier on with regards to making your way through traffic if you need to, but just in general really. If you're racing another car, it's going to be easier to overtake than it was here. With the push to pass, you could always defend yourself quite easily really into turn one, and then that was kind of it at Imola. But here, there are multiple opportunities, not least into turn one and the final turn, but this one as well, turn 4 is going to be a good opportunity as Cam outlined in the lap. The push to pass is going to be a bit more of a factor maybe, and we're going to see it maybe a bit more noticeable, quite possibly, throughout the 56 laps today.
I think we should head down to our virtual pit lane with Cam and Roger to ask about strategy expectations on that side, Cam.
Oh, it's going to be a very tough race indeed. The tyre wear is pretty high around here. Imola was actually quite nice. That's why we saw the Red Bulls attempting a one-stop. I don't think you're going to see that today, even with the hards. You're going to see a lot of two-stop strategies, I would say. However, look out for someone doing a bit of a three-stop. The pit lane's actually quite short here, only about maybe sort of 12 to 15 seconds. So if you do an extra pit stop over the course of the 56 laps, you probably can make that time back, especially if you use a couple of sets of those soft compound tyres. So yeah, look out for someone doing that. And as you see, the softs are actually a lot more in favour here compared to the starting tyre a couple of weeks ago in Imola.
Rain's typical in this region, Cam. What are we expecting on that side? Anything, or is it all going to be a nice dry and clean sailing to the end of the race?
There was a bit of weather in the air, but that seems to have gone away. It looks pretty clear at the moment, but if it does rain, look out for some chaos because this car is pretty tricky, but I think it's a little bit unlikely as we speak.
Well, we'll return to it then. Cheers, Cam. We'll be back to you in a few moments, probably on the end of lap 1 of the race to ask what is going on. Ewan, you know I'm going to ask it. You should have been preparing. Who's going to win this race?
Who is going to win this race? That is a big question. I'm going to go for Dennis Jordan.
Oh, I was going to go for
to be honest. Well, you asked me first, so I'll slide in there with that one. Dennis Jordan, I think he's going to have learned a few things from 2 weeks ago. He had a terrible, terrible start, if you remember. Was on pole, of course, qualified really well, but was 4th by the end of lap 2 or 3. He's not going to let that happen again, and I think he's going to take home the win.
I'll change it then. I'll change my opinion. I was going to go Dennis Jordan. This does feel like a Dennis Jordan race, but I'm feeling, some new, fresh talent, someone in form right now. I'm feeling for the second consecutive year in a row, we're going to see back-to-back victories to open the season. I'm going Colin Spork, P6 at the moment for Unicorns of Love. I think he might well do it. We'll have to wait and see, though, as we all ready ourselves once more. It's a good time to thank our sponsors, of course, in the form of SimLab, 3D Wrap and Masita Esports, and our broadcast partners, VCO, where we are across sim racing for round number 2 of the Formula Sim Racing World Championship. Janis Brakshock and Alex Siebel will start alongside in the front row with Dennis Jordan, Noah Roivers, Carlos Martin, and your championship leader and Grand Prix winner at San Marino, Colin Spork, starting from 6th position. It is a long hold on this grid as we are readying everyone in positions, but we are ready to go racing. 56 laps onto the board, and we are underway at Malaysia as Janis Brakshock gets away. It was a slow initial reaction from him, but look at Carlos Martin straight through the middle, trying to attack for the podium spot already. Potentially a little bit of contact between Sandar Callis and Noah Roivers at turn 1 as they all go 3 wide, funneling their way through the first corner as it all tightens up at the second. Everyone seems clean so far. Carlos Martin with the best start, trying to attack for that 3rd spot, but it is Noah Roivers, his teammate, that hangs on at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Brakshock's had a fantastic start here as well. Great launch for him, great first couple of corners. One man who's had a terrible start once again, though, it's Dennis Jordan, all the way down in 6th position already after only 4 corners. Little bit of contact a little bit further back. Tom Oldermenger's gone around, but other than that, it was a very clean start.
Yeah, obviously very dicey in the opening lap. We always kind of expect that. It is tight battling up the order. It is Carlos Martin on the rear end, Noah Roivers. Noah Roivers absolutely hounding the rear end of Alex Siebel, and Janis Brakshock is booking his ticket all ready to go home because he has cleared off into the distance. 1.6 seconds. I don't think there's very much tyre saving happening on that car. We did kind of feel that in the previous round from Alex Siebel and Dennis Jordan and Michi Hoyer when they were dropping backwards. They were looking after their tyres in San Marino. Wonder if this is anything of that same sort of boundary. Janis Brakshock, less kind on his tyres, but very, very fast.
It looks like also that Adam Rainey's been off as well, I'm afraid to say, at turn 11. So a couple of guys have come unstuck, and indeed we've got Robin Panzer off at the penultimate turn now as well. So a number of issues, but Brakshock's been very, very good off this opening start, almost Sebastian Vettel style, if you remember from about 10 years ago, just racing away at the moment. 1.7 seconds at the end of lap 1. Siebel taking things very easy. Cam suggesting that there's going to be absolutely no 1-stop today. I wonder if Siebel is doing that, or even is this how much you have to save for a 2-stop? Very possible.
Jan Vosnitzer down the inside of Zoltschutz, trying to get inside that top 10. It was a bit of a dive down into turn 1, but the outside line through turn 2, the move has been made. Potentially had to use a little bit of his push to pass, of his the temporary boost, just to clear that position. Obviously no DRS right now. We'll be opening that very, very shortly indeed, but does clear himself up into 9th spot now. Jan Vosnitzer, like I say, right up there in the championship, whilst his rivals and teammates and stuff, I know we're very early doors in this 2022 Formula Sim Racing World Championship, but you do always need to be thinking about the World Championship. You can't just rely on it to come to you later in the season.
Yeah, you do have to be thinking about it right from start to finish. You sometimes see those who aren't thinking about it at the start actually get up there because they're just kind of going for races, and all of a sudden they find themselves in that situation, but it doesn't happen very often. And you do have to think about the big picture, even though it's not a very long season, of course, 10 races. You do have to think about the big picture pretty much constantly, and that calculation will be going through everybody's mind now, you'd expect.
Now, what does Colin Spork do? He's on the rear end of not only his teammate, but also essentially his team manager as well. Do you back off and be kind, or do you look down the inside and be like, come on, mate, I'm leading this championship, if you'd kindly?
I think it's a bit early for the championship thought, I think, but certainly I think Spork is the more likely one to win this race, even from this situation. It's just a case of what's Martin going to do here, really. We saw him be very helpful to Spork during the last race. It actually earned Martin a 2-place penalty for his action throughout the race. But he was helping Spork along the way. I wonder if that's going to be a theme throughout the season. Have they already decided that actually Spork's got a better chance of winning these races than I have, so I might as well try and help him in whatever way I can. But maybe not as well. He'll want his own chances, of course, and he's driving the best that he has done for a while. So a podium certainly on the cards. He's in and around those positions right now, and he'll want some of the glory for himself, of course.
I mean, he's a young superstar, is Colin Spork. In the short career he's had in sim racing, has driven for teams like Edge eSports, like Unicorns Above. Also, a small team, maybe a Team Redline in there as well, having done a few races in a season in Formula Challenge, rFactor 2 Formula Challenge in that one as well. So clearly a young talent indeed to keep an eye on for future reference, but obviously now signed up with NetRex and of course Unicorns of Love. I will say though, when this partnership first began, which was obviously here in VCO actually, in the VCO eSports Racing World Cup in January, Carlos Martin, to be honest, had some of his best performances that he's had in his recent SimRacing career. For that, in that partnership on the rFactor 2 day, which was day 2. Noah Roivers, as we ride on board with Jan Vosnitzer, his teammate, Noah Roivers is right on the rear end of Alex Siebel and Colin Spork, trying to go for a move on Carlos Martin. Easy move for Noah Roivers, easy move for Colin Spork as well.
Yeah, a little bit surprising to see how easily Roivers got through there, but the exchange of positions between Unicorns of Love was not exactly a big surprise. If that's a precursor as to what we're going to see today, then we're going to see some very easy DRS passes down into turn number 1. You'd expect where we get in 50 laps time or so that those positions aren't going to change quite so easily. But even so, the DRS very powerful, very strong down into turn number 1 there, and almost no contest for either of those battles.
I think this is the thing though, is that you like you say, you have to weigh it up. You have to see it dependent on where you are in the race. You could go on the full attack now, and that's all well and good. But sometimes, if you don't need to fight super hard for a position, you don't. And clearly, Alex Siebel running slightly different on strategy. I don't think he's going to fight that one too hard with no Roivers. Whether he starts fighting them harder as he goes backwards, Colin Spork will surely be looking for a move at some point on this lap. But if he can keep within the slipstream of Noah Roivers, I know we don't really necessarily like DRS trains, but that could be what Alex Siebel wants right now.
It certainly could. It's obviously not the most entertaining from a spectator's point of view, but it's an absolute dream sometimes in certain situations for a driver, so that may well be the case. However, Siebel's already lost DRS there. You can see it's not quite 1 second here in the FSR World Championship, just under that, about 3/4 of a second you've got to be within. So, not quite there, and Siebel, although he's had a very good final quarter there, Siebel not quite in DRS range, I'm afraid, and he's already lost it. These DRS trains are a little bit difficult, or more difficult at least, to keep together than they used to be.
It's just the fear as Jan Vosnitzer gets down the outside of Lauren Keersmakers down into turn 1 and is trying to make that one, so you can just sort of see it there in the background inside for turn 2. Keersmakers kind of gives up on that one at the second corner and thinks, all right, fine, yeah, no, you've won that battle, and Jan Vosnitzer up into 8th place. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Keeping those DRS trains together is actually really quite difficult in this, especially with dirty air and stuff. I know it's not quite as extreme and pronounced in cars such as this as we've seen before, but still, you've got to keep it to 0.7 of a second to keep that rear wing opening. And like I say, easier said than done, and that can burn out your tyres. You just kind of have to fear, is Alex Siebel and that lot, are they going to burn out their push to pass quite aggressively trying to keep up?
Yeah, it's a good point. You've only got 100 seconds throughout the race, which is nearly 2 seconds a lap here. That's not a lot at all, especially when you consider how long the back straight and the front straight actually is. You really do have to be very careful of that, especially early on in the race, because if it comes down to the last few laps like it did 2 years ago, then you're definitely going to want to need some, or have some in the bank at the very least.
Speaking of earlier on in the race, I think we should take a look at some of the replays that we saw earlier on. Tom Oldermenger down at turn 1, going around the outside of the first couple of corners whilst it was 3 wide, up and down to the inside and trying to go. I mean, that was just chaotic in the middle. Obviously, clobbered the teammate of Robert Pignataro, that is, of course, the teammate of our race leader, Janis Brakshock, and then managed to rejoin. Robin Panzer had an off down at the final corner, whilst he was battling it out with Pignataro as well. Common denominator, although not really at fault. This one is just Panzer going off by himself. A couple of corners before, Adam Rainey had been off in a fairly similar way, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, just a simple spin on his own, really, as we see Sander Callas getting down the inside of Carlos Martin here. He's really been dropping down the order in the last couple of moments. He was right in the back of Sport not so long ago, but Jordan and Callas have got through. Callas, by the way, made his World Championship debut back in 2015. He's a very old hand at this, but it's a bit of a surprise to see him doing so well right now. Pleasant surprise.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, doing absolutely brilliant. A driver that has had a pole position before, but never a race win and such. This is what happened to Carlos Martin on that run down into turn 1. So, of course, quite close to his teammate Colin Spork, and looks down the inside going for a move. Oh, he's not going to spin it himself, is it? As there was a little bit of assistance as well ahead, with Noah Roivers keeping Alex Siebel. Although I thought Noah Roivers actually was the one that had pole position. That was just how Colin Sport could actually got through, so we'll panic our way, and that explains why the DRS was wide open. This one is what happened to Carlos Martin. So Sanders Callas got straight down the inside.
Wow, that was a late defence, it has to be said, from Martin, but in the end still wasn't enough to hold Callas back by the looks of things. Nicely around the outside through turn 2, and it opens itself up quite nicely, does that corner, to those on the outside line. You can get the power down, keep the tight line through turn 3, and then you can obviously defend your way into 4, which is exactly what Callas did here to hold on to what is 6th place. Even before this replay, there was Dennis Jordan had managed to get his way through on Martin. Unsure as to where that might have happened, because it certainly wasn't at turn 1 or the final turn, which is where you'd normally see them, a little bit earlier on. So yeah, there we are. This is how he did it. It looks like it was a lap previous, actually.
Yeah, we just clearly weren't paying any attention. Nice little move there from Dennis Jordan straight down the inside, and Carlos Martin giving that one up. So clearly not quite as much race pace in the legs of Carlos Martin for Unicorns of Love. But I will use this time very quickly to bring in Cameron Roger, of course, keeping an eye on how things have been going. Tyres, etc. Janis Brakshock running away from everyone, surely looking for a 3-stop strategy here.
I think so. Just the way he was pulling away at the front, really burning up those tyres. To do a 2-stop, you're looking something in the region of maybe 16 laps on the soft, and then you've got 40 laps left, so 20 maybe on 2 sets of mediums. Something like that. I expect a lot of drivers are going to be looking at. It's actually, as we say that, Carlos Martin having a bit of an issue there, dropping down even more. And I think he has maybe had some sort of issue there. That looks a bit weird, and that isn't going to be doing his tyres any good as he drops a bit down to 12th place. So yeah, he's actually probably going to be struggling to get to that all-important sort of lap 16-ish that I was just mentioning.
Seeing quite a few issues from drivers, literally one right before our eyes there, Cam. Difficult circuit, no?
Oh, difficult circuit indeed. It's probably one of the harder ones on the calendar, really, and this is a very old school circuit. You've got a lot of things going against you with the bumps, with the curbs, and slightly lesser track grip, I think, compared to some other tracks as well. So yeah, certainly a bit of a challenge for these drivers.
Well, we'll catch up with Cam a bit later on in the broadcast. We see David Marotchek dropping back outside of the top 10. Ivan Leonov, though, getting down the inside of Jake Dennehan, who's managed to find his way up into the top 10 courtesy of the mistakes from Carlos Martin, who's definitely going to have been burning out his tyres through all of that, Ewan. Oh, well, yeah, another crazy start to the race.
Yeah, absolutely. Shame to see for Carlos Martin. Unfortunately, we were just complimenting him on how he's in the best form he's been in for a good while, and I'm afraid he's had a mistake there, as there's a very late braking for both of them through turn 4, and just about space given between the two as well. It looks like they're going to go side by side, possibly through the S's section, round the outside through turn 5. Very nice move indeed. Finding the grip on the outside line somehow there. Marotchek wasn't willing to quite give up, and eventually Martin makes his way through. Very impressive round the outside of turn 5.
It's not the first time that Carlos Martin's had issues with the number 10 car this season, of course, pushing Mitchy Hoyer off at the penultimate corner at the San Marino Grand Prix. Let's see what happened with Carlos Martin and watch the gears. So braking and down to begin to score nose just onto the curb on the left-hand side. And that's just it, is you kind of want to use as much of the track as possible, but clearly opened up the corner a slight bit too much. And as when you get on the brakes like that, the weight transfer is very, very aggressive, and boom, away she went.
Yeah, you said there that we were expecting him to go down to gear 1, but actually just getting a little bit wide on the curb. And that was it, really. There's almost nothing you can do in terms of catching a slide at that point. And yeah, Martin all the way outside the top 10. And now, unfortunately for him, as we look at Alex Siebel trying to get through on Noah Rovers, or is he at this stage? That's the question. Going down into turn number 1. Wasn't really braking late or trying very hard into that corner at all.
No, we were seeing a little bit of short shifting in there, not taking it all the way up to the end of the rev limit. Lifting off nice and early, saving a bit of fuel. Whilst it is all done on the one tank, you can still turn up your mixed modes and stuff and go on the attack a bit later on. Obviously with push to pass and such, and probably even just trying to make sure he's keeping his tyres right where he wants them. I would assume that they're probably sat there working out that Janis Brakshock speeding off at that level into the distance. Surely this is a 3-stop. This is what's going through their mind right now, and I will take you back to the 2019 Italian Grand Prix, and the reason why I do, because it was one Mr. Janis Brakshock, who, yes, don't get me wrong, it was Monza, so it's slightly different as to how things work, but in that race, Janis Brakshock ended up leading, and everyone was assuming that he was on a 2-stop strategy, including Martin Gosby and Jerne Simicic for ACR Zakspeed. And there was one point in the race where they realised that he was going to go for a 1-stop, and it was just this switch with about 15 laps to go, and then they were like, right, we've got 15 seconds to go, and he's 15 seconds ahead of us, and the speed they started catching him, it was personal best, but there was panic in what they were doing. It wasn't as if it was like we'll catch him up later on. They were genuinely like, we need to go now because we're going to lose this race. It was absolutely enthralling.
Yeah, I mean, we could see a similar situation here, really. Nobody really knows what everybody else is going to do at this stage because it's just too early to tell. To be honest, we're still, 45 laps to go, even more than that at this stage. We haven't seen the first round of pit stops or anything like that. We'll have more of an idea, as Cam says, when we get to lap 16, because it's the all-important lap, of course, in this particular race. We'll have more of an idea then, but we may still see that kind of brainwave moment where they realise that Braxrock does actually need to be caught on the road here, and they're not going to out-strategize him today. So there may be that position coming in the future, but for now, with this many laps to go, a 4-second margin is not really worth losing much sleep over.
No, we'll keep our eye on how that one rolls up, rolls down across the rest of the race, because there is still a very, very long way to go, and we know that this is one of the most abrasive circuits that we visit all year. Now, whilst Colin Spork was closing in a little bit on Alex Siebel, he's got to really focus backwards to Dennis Jordan. Alex Siebel's not really too much going on the attack of Noah Roivers, but I do think that Dennis Jordan will try and clear Spork at some point in the near future, just to get behind his teammate, play a bit of a rear gunner. I mean, we speak of the partnership between Siebel and Jordan time and time again, because it's one of the best ones that we've had in sim racing as an example between two drivers. Dennis Jordan might feel it's kind of critical to get past Spork.
Yeah, and he's looking pretty good right now, to be honest, on the back of Spork. He's almost having a go as they went through the double right-hander at turn 7 and 8. He was very, very close, able to follow very close to the back of the Unicorns of Love car, so very possible that he will be able to make a move down into turn 1. Of course, the Dutchman's got the DRS, though, which is not going to be particularly helpful, and he was able to really accelerate very hard out of that final turn there. Jordan getting nowhere near him. I think, while you say there Jordan does want to get through on Spork, I don't think Spork particularly wants to let him through, so that is going to be a bit of an argument between the two.
Well, here comes Carlos Martin grabbing back the top 10 position down the inside of Ivan Leonov, of course, a driver which he's managing in this series, and so I don't think that was going to be a particularly hard-fought move considering the pace of the Spaniard that we focus on. The battle between Davin Rotchek and Jake Dennehan as well, switching that one up. Davin Rotchek moving up, obviously jumping into the series. Not a good day for Burst, considering how many championships in the form of Jerne Simoncic and how many race wins Burst have taken over the last couple of years. To see no Burst car inside of the top 10, despite having 4 on the grid and 4 still racing, is a very, very bizarre scenario to be in.
Yeah, it's very disappointing as well. Even last time around, they managed 3 cars inside the top 10. Admittedly, there were none of them inside the top 5, but it has been a disappointing season so far. And I think without trying to pinpoint it on anybody, I feel like they might have been expecting a little bit more from Skrovron, replacing, of course, the outgoing 3-time champion Jerne Simoncic. Big shoes to fill, admittedly, but he was 6th in Indy Pro. He had a very good academy season last year, so maybe they were expecting a little bit more from him. And at the moment, he's not really been able to find his feet in this championship too well. Although we've got to remember they are all on, nearly apart from Rotchek, they're on the medium tyres back there, so they may appear later.
Let's see if Dennis Jordan goes on the attack here. DRS open for the pair of these two, but Dennis Jordan straight down the inside. Brilliant move to clear Colin Spork. Colin Spork was trying to fight that one a little bit, but realised when the battle was basically over, and Dennis Jordan gets himself up into 4th position, now directly behind Alex Siebel. Does Spork return, though, and come down the inside, go around the outside of turn 4? No, backing straight out of it. Smart move from Colin Spork. Clearly a wise head on young shoulders right there in Spork's point of view. To speak of the Burst issues, going to play a little bit of a harsh game here, so sorry to any Burst that's listening into this. They don't seem to like this car. Now, this has been across the board. They didn't do so great within the rFactor 2 Pro Series. Is running a little bit wide there was Colin Spork, and maybe under a bit of pressure from Sander Kars. Didn't go well in rFactor 2 Formula Pro Series, or really even Formula Challenge went well. We'll not talk about that one because Rotchek won that one, so it's all right. The VCO ERWC, they didn't do as strong as we were expecting from them, and it's kind of now we're seeing this car in here as well, not really doing too well. Clearly they don't go well with this car. Obviously within their team you have Robin Panzar, who's helped develop the last couple of cars that we had within the Formula Sim Racing World Championship. Not saying that there has been anything behind the scenes and anything of major bias happening, but it does explain a lot.
it certainly will help. Whether there, anyway, it certainly would help being behind the development of the cars, and yeah, it is difficult to get used to a new car. Of course, there's no question about that. As we see Braxock into the pit lane very early, I think this is kind of underlining what Cam was saying earlier about free-stop strategy. It's very interesting to see how Braxock runs for the rest of the day. But yeah, Burst certainly struggling. And it'll be interesting. It's interesting, to see how they pick themselves up here over the next few weeks. They're certainly going to need a better performance.
Yeah, I think we should go down and chat with Cam just a second whilst Janis Braxock departs the pit lane. Can this strategy work? It's going to be hard to make these moves. We've seen it's a quite difficult circuit to make a pass with DRS. Surely there's an option here for Braxock doing something different.
Oh yeah, I think this is certainly good that he's trying this because maybe he didn't, couldn't have kept the pace with doing the two-stop strategy. The issue is he's now got this traffic in front of him because that mid-pack has sort of pulled away a little bit. Zooks, they're in 8th place, just pulling away a little bit, having some cars behind him, and now Braxock's going to be losing time, and these soft tyres are very critical. Actually, this might be a move now for Denham. Bill pushed past down the inside of the hairpin. This should be just about sorted on the exit with the extra grip. Well, no, Denham actually is going to fight around the outside, but this is just losing Braxock time. And the softs, they have this sort of peak grip for about 2 laps, and then they start to drop off. So all that time he's stuck behind this traffic, he's going to be wasting those couple of seconds with the peak grip that he could be using.
Well, cheers, Cam. We'll keep our eye on Janis Braxock to see what progress he can make. Obviously, 15 seconds now off the race leader, which is Noah Roivers. Alex Siebel and Dennis Jordan directly behind Janis Braxock, straight past Jake Dennehan. Kind of the expectation that the first few moves should at least be fairly easy. Davin Rotchek was looking down the inside of Ivan Leonov. Janis Braxock in way too deep, manages to pull it up to the apex. That was about as close as you could possibly get, just because the other two backing off of each other, waiting for this second DRS zone.
Well, yeah, that wasn't all the grip, of course. That was indeed backing off, going down in towards the final corner. But goodness me, very nearly caused a big incident as down the inside goes Mocek, gets through quite nicely. But yeah, this is absolutely awful for Braxock. He does not want this at all. The trains are the worst, as we're seeing right now. It's so hard to get your way through. Now he's got a bit of pace coming through turn 3, but nowhere to use it. It's going to have to be a dive at 4, and he can't do it. And he may well spend the rest of this lap stuck behind Ivan Leonov, unless he can do something spectacular in the S's, which he can't.
Yeah, obviously blocked off quite nicely there from Ivan Leonov, who knows what he really needs to do to keep. Obviously, Noah Roivers right up there in the race leading position right now. Just defend from Janis Braxock, keep him at bay, keep the Hungarian struggling right now, and who knows where the victory is going to go. You're eliminating one from doing that, but like you say, as the train, it's difficult. When they're all separated one by one, you can pick them off one at a time, nice and easily. Janis Braxock is not being afforded that opportunity, and he needs to do something brave here. Surely down the inside of this corner's not really the wisest one. I know we've seen a few give that one a go whilst racing around Malaysia. Not going to work in this scenario, and Janis Braxock just has to settle with picking up one position this lap. Just one. Well, I was on the last lap, actually. He's not picked up one this lap. Never mind.
Well, he might well do by the end, as we see him down the inside. A bit of a squeeze to the left-hand side here from Ivan Leonov, who's within his rights to do this, of course, because they're battling for position. But that's going to be quite easy, as we see a change for the lead. Alex Siebel's had enough of follow the leader, and he wants to push on a little bit. Probably knows that he can make it to the magical lap 16, of course, and it might just be deciding to push on and eke the last little bit of life out of these tyres.
Oh, Janis Braxock's got a bit of an issue though, because he's got straight down the inside. Ivan Leonov is already looking once again. Bit of a lock up as well on that front right, going down into the first corner. I was just catching it elsewhere. Not ideal from Janis Braxock. Didn't cover off the slipstream and the DRS from Leonov, but still eyes forward. Davin Rotchek just ahead. A couple of drivers also came into the pit lane in the form of Sander Kallis and Jan Vosnitsa. So a couple of drivers still down into that pit lane, which kind of makes sense. Sander Kallis, though, came out on the softs again. Curious?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I might have to ask Cam what he thinks about that, but I mean, it looks like maybe a 3-stop for him as well, quite possibly, because it's certainly earlier than everybody else, but who knows really at this stage, a bit too early to tell. But yeah, this is so poor for Braxock here at the moment. The traffic that he's found himself in, he's just losing time to these guys, or not losing time, on the road right now, but in terms of the overall race, this is not benefiting him in any way, shape or form. We were speaking a couple of weeks ago about the fact that Bradshaw doesn't really mind the fact that he doesn't often have teammates around him. He often goes alone in these races without the assistance of teammates like the likes of Siebel and Jordan have, for example, and the Burst guys. But this is the exact moment where you do need teammates. As Jordan goes down the inside of Roivers, this is the kind of situation where teammates would be helpful. Maybe just that one position to let you through, just help you on that little bit throughout a race like this.
Well, it's now an Oracle Red Bull Racing eSports 1 and 2 as finally Carlos Martin comes into the pit lane and thankfully can get off of those tyres, which have seen better days. Janis Bradshaw down the inside of David Rocek as his march forwards continues. I'm sure he'll be leading some more this afternoon once everyone else has been into the pit lane with it just being a 15-second gap. But realistically speaking, I mean, not made enough progress on the start of this second stint for the Arnage competition driver. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see how things unfold in this through the rest of this race. Could go for another soft set of tyres on the next stint. Speaking of going on to another soft set of tyres, to explain what happened with Sander Callas going on to that soft set, could be running soft, hard. But anyone that can remember back to the San Marino Grand Prix, or rather the support race that we had in San Marino, because clearly there were a couple of teams that went onto it at Imola, but no one used the hard tyre because, to put it nicely, as we found out within the Academy and Pro Championships, the hard tyre sucks. It really isn't a good tyre, and so people want to avoid it.
Yeah, people will be tending to avoid it, you'd expect. It just depends how desperately you want to do that two-stop, I suppose, rather than three. I feel like at a circuit like this, though, with a pit stop delta that we've seen here so far, it's probably beneficial to just do free rather than having to take the pain of the hard tyres. As Noah Roivers comes in this time, he's going to be trying to be careful on those brakes, of course, if you remember back to the end of the Imola race. But yeah, this is lap 16 and just about in the window for a two-stop strategy, although it is earlier than the rest of the top four, and he's missed his box.
Cam Roger, Noah Roivers missing his box there. That was tragic.
Easier said than or easier done than said, I should say, actually, in these pit boxes, because there's actually like a concrete surface there that's a little bit less grippy, easier to do than you might think. So he's going to be losing a tiny bit of time there, but as you see, he's got a little bit of sort of clean air out there, and he's going to be able to use those fresh tyres to good use, because they really sort of have like a second of that faster just on that very first lap. And if you can use that, you can make that undercut or overcut really working well for you. And I think it would be interesting to see someone, you just mentioned the hard tyres, it would be interesting to see someone, because actually Callas, I think, was the only driver in the WC race 2 weeks ago to use the hard tyres, but that's because he had a crash and whatnot, so kind of made it easier for him. But it would be interesting to see them being used, but I think it is just going to be a battle of the 2 and 3 stops today, and we'll have to see which one works out, because Bradshaw, he still has gained time on Siebel overall.
Why are the hard tyres so bad?
They just don't have as much grip, and even though they last longer, say in a 40 or 30 lap stint, it would be quicker to do 2 sets of softs.
Goodness me. Well, thank you, Cam. We'll catch up with you again in a bit later. Sander Callas looking down the inside into the penultimate corner to get past David Marocek as Jan Vosnitz is applying the pressure now, Ewan.
He certainly is, and straight down the inside here for Callas. Brocek just trying not to get in the way, but also sort of getting in the way at the same time, as he comes in the pit lane now, and Callas is going to be freed, but I think he's not going to spend very long at all in front of Vosnica here. It should be a fairly easy move down his turn number 1, although he is going to fight this one. It's going to turn to the inside line, of course, for turn 2 for Vosnica, but he doesn't really need it. He's going to sweep right around the outside and take that position.
That was absolutely superb from Jan Vosnitz. Let's see if he holds on to it, though, because Sander Callas is coming straight back, but no way to pass there. Was eyeing it up, but I think might need to look after the soft tyres. Whoa, straight down the inside, though, coming up towards turn 4. That was a late move, and Sander Callas, the Estonian, back down the inside. A little bit of contact with the front wing of Jan Vosnitz, manages to grab that position back. What a move.
Yeah, nice move between the two. Nice racing between the two, but tensions will certainly be high now. After all of that, Callas with great closing speed, just about to put it to the inside in time, and shoved Vosnica out very, very wide. Not because he was really, I don't think he did that to the driver, so to speak. He just broke quite late, to be honest, and Vosnica happened to be on the outside of him. So good racing between the two, aggressive certainly, but this is certainly not over. There's no question about that. Vosnica is going to want another attempt at the very least at getting through.
Well, I wonder if Alex Siebel, Dennis Jordan, if either of those are going to be into the pit lane. They are sharing a box within the 2022 Formula Sim Racing World Championship, but Alex Siebel has bailed to come down pit lane, your race leader, straight onto it. Obviously running those soft tyres at the moment. Expectation that he's going to go onto the mediums to basically do 2 stints on the mediums to see out the checkered flag on a 2-stop strategy here at the Malaysian Grand Prix. Let's see as he moves into his box. Keep our fingers crossed that he doesn't miss it. Certainly does, of course, well experienced to come down onto pit lane, and Janis Brackshot will retake second position, and I would assume in one more rotation of the 5.5 kilometre circuit that we're on, surely Janis Brackshot is going to be leading this race.
You'd think so, as Callis and Bosnick are back at it once again, around the outside of turn 2, this time for Bosnick once again, and he's got his way through. But yeah, Brackshot's going to have a nice lead actually of about 6 seconds, you'd expect. Siebel's dropped in behind Colin Spork here in this one, but it just really depends who is doing a 2-stop, who is doing the 3-stop in this race. Roivers, despite missing his box, has managed to keep himself within this group with Siebel, so all is not lost for him either.
Wow, again, thrilling action and strategy that we're seeing here. Understanding, obviously, that Red Bull have gone a bit further than some of the other teams, and so the expectation might be to see them going onto the soft tyres a bit later on, as once again, Colin Spork down the inside of Sander Callis, and might well have picked that one up and completed it. So Jan Vosnitzer did get back through on Callis, and Alex Siebel now with the work to do to try and clear the Estonian.
Yeah, he certainly has, and he's going to need to make light work, really, of Callis, you'd expect. I mean, judging by how difficult Vosnick found it, and Spork as well, it's going to be not an easy task at all for Siebel, but it needs to be done, really, in the next few moments to keep with the group. Just try and keep the pace up, really, at this stage in the race, and then see where you are a little bit later on. Obviously, opportunity going to come to him at turn 1, but it looks like up front, actually, Spork and Vosnick are going to have a bit of a bigger fight, quite possibly. Spork with a fantastic exit off of the final turn, and he's straight through here.
Now, they're not allowed to let each other past, courtesy of some rules that came out. Well, that didn't come out, they've always existed. But Netrex were on the receiving end of when it comes to letting teams and such pass. But either way, that one was a pretty nice one, and Colin Spork up into second position. Now we'll try and hunt down the 6.3 second gap to Janis Brackshot. It is Brackshot from Spork, from Vosnitzer, from Alex Siebel, who is ahead of Sander Callis. Then it's Noah Roivers, Dennis Jordan, obviously the next two that will try and pass the Ground Effect Sim Racing team car. Then it is his teammate Zoltz Schuch with Laurent Kiersmaker and Damien Skovron inside the top 10. Focus here on Colin Spork. And he's got I don't know if it's a fair amount of pressure on his shoulders to try and keep on this. Obviously, Unicorns of Love being run by the Netrex group. But in the form that Colin Spork's a championship leader, your race winner last time out, Jan Vosnitzer's second place. He's obviously batting for the championship as well. A little bit of a lock up there. Surely Jan Vosnitzer's not just going to sit there.
Well, he might well do, to be honest. I think he's going to be more preoccupied, to be honest, with who's behind him. Because look at Alex Siebel here. He's quite close in attendance, and he's going to want to make his way through here. And Spork looks like he's actually getting away here. So I think the race winner from last time out is going to have a fairly easy time of things. Going to be able to just run in his own. But what is very interesting in this race is that the Red Bulls have split strategy here. Alex Siebel's on the mediums, but Dennis Jordan has gone for another set of soft tyres, which is a bit of a surprise to me. But he is going to try and use those softs, of course, to make his way through the field. He's got a bit more overtaking to do than his teammate.
Yeah, well, let's see as we ride on board with Alex Siebel, see if there is going to be the position picked up on Jan Vosnitzer, who's going to go slightly defensive, a bit late, bit of a I'm not going to call that reactionary, but it wasn't a million miles away as Alex Siebel's going around the outside of turn 1, gives him the inside of the second corner. He's just going to absolutely throw it in for the Oracle Red Bull Racing eSports Camp. They're side by side off of that corner, and it is Jan Vosnitzer surely with the advantage. They run round turn 3, but carrying the speed. We'll see if Siebel can hang on. It's going to be a big dive here from Vosnitzer into 4. Surely the outside line works here. Side by side action continuing. Alex Siebel potentially gaining the spot, but they're still side by side. Jan Vosnitzer around the outside of 5. Oh, there's a little bit of contact through the inside of T6, and here comes Alex Siebel around the outside. 7, 8, once again, still there. Now going to push him off. Bit naughty there from Vosnitzer, and surely that one won't stand.
Well, there's very fine margins between the two, to be honest. Didn't do a lot wrong, Vosnicker, and he might not have done anything. We'll have to have a look again, to be honest. But very close between the two, and it was always going to happen. Great battling, though, and Callis wants a piece of it.
No.
Oh, that was contact. No question about that. And Siebel was going to be pretty furious about that one, there's no doubt. He's around at turn 11 and drops down the field quite dramatically.
Yeah, obviously Jan Vosnicki was battling with Alex Siebel there just to slow him down and keep him off his teammate. Well, once again, just take a very quick look. Sandow Callister on board with. Yeah, there was a little bit of a pinch from Alex Siebel, and then down here just doesn't really have the grip, was kind of going in a bit of a straight line and straight to the side. It wasn't quite as obvious on board, but that was not pretty. And Alex Siebel, I don't think he'll be happy, and I think he has all of the right to not be happy about what happened over that lap.
Well, certainly about the Sander Callas part of things, I think was certainly probably Callas' fault in that one, because didn't hit the apex there at turn 11 and got into the side of the Red Bull. So a penalty may be coming his way, or at least some kind of investigation about that one. But yeah, Siebel will definitely not be happy about what's gone on there. It's certainly reduced those who are in contention to win this race, though. Maybe even down to a very small amount, because can't forget about Colin Spork. He's 3.5 seconds out front of these guys right now, and it's just sort of depend on how quickly Dennis Jordan can get through on Jan Vosnicki. But Spork's in a very strong position for the second time in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I want to chat to Cam Roger and ask for his opinion on the incident, not only between, of course, Sander Callas and Alex Siebel there, but between Jan Vosnicki on the exit of T8 there.
It's the car's very on the limits in those corners. They're almost one-line corners, but when there is a car side by side, you have to obviously allow racing room, which is not just the car width, but you also have to allow for mistakes and going around corners and that sort of thing. So I think maybe just Siebel going or being pushed off maybe just a little bit on the exit of turn 8, but coming into that corner afterwards with Callas, he just didn't have the grip, as we're going to see Dennis Jordan get a pretty easy run there into the final corner. But Dennis Jordan actually just behind, he might have got the DRS again down this front straight.
Yeah, that might well have been well timed though from Jan Vosnicki. So cheers, Cam. We'll see. The DRS is open on Dennis Jordan's car. The timing was not perfect from Jan Vosnicki, who's going to burn some of his push to pass just to try and get back to the inside. Didn't commit though, and Dennis Jordan up into third, potentially the lone opportunity then for Oracle Red Bull Racing eSports to take a victory here this afternoon after the demise of Alex Siebel. Surely is way too far out of it now, but the gap already 4 seconds to Colin Spork, Ewan. I think that gap, it's too early to say that gap's too big, but that gap's too big.
Yeah, well, I don't disagree. It's a very big margin to have at this stage in the race. I know we're not even halfway through, or not quite halfway through just yet, but that is a big margin, and you don't want to give a driver like Colin Spork that kind of margin. It's all kind of plan all working together though for Jan Vosnicki. To be honest, we know they're sort of part of the same team, if you like, part of the Netrex umbrella, if you could call it. Vosnicki certainly helped out Spork. Intentionally or otherwise, obviously helping out his own race all at the same time. But Spork's been given a bit of margin. We cannot forget about Braxtock though. We are kind of just missing him.
We do forget about him, yeah, that's the problem.
We are just missing him a little bit in this race. However, what can he produce throughout the remainder of this one? Sometimes we do see surprises, sometimes we do get miracles, and if this 3-stop were to be pulled off by the Hungarian, then this would be certainly close to one.
It's not an easy one. It really isn't. It's kind of one of those ones that seems easy on paper because you do. How many times have we seen this where it's like you'll put together 2 strategies? It'll be soft, medium, and then you'll do like soft, hard, right? And you put them together, and it'll tell you that you'll complete the race in 1 hour and 35 minutes, and then it's seconds different. Now, that's all good on paper, because in that sense, it might show that a 3-stop strategy is technically faster. You might be able to gain that pit stop back, but obviously that doesn't account for getting you through traffic, and that is where the time is lost. For Janis Braxtock, this race certainly isn't lost, although that gap did start to go down a little bit to Colin Spork and Alex Siebel when they were on that battle when they were closing in, but obviously after the issues and such. Colin Spork got it to 5.3. It's not really gone down any lower than that realistically. It's sort of hovered around the 5-second margin. One gap which is coming down is Dennis Jordan now. And let's be honest, how many times have we spoken about Dennis Jordan and a masterclass on tyre strategy? Well, he knows what he's doing.
He does, and he is bringing that margin down to Colin Spork. It's now 2.7 to around there. It was getting up towards 4 a little bit earlier on. The tyre-saving qualities of Dennis Jordan coming in handy once more. But also, even taking that into account, this does mean the fact that he went so long in the first stint does mean that he might be able to push a little bit harder in this stint. which it might be exactly what he's doing right now. Well, Collins Bork is saving tyres for the second stint in a row to let loose a little bit more in this one, because he went a good 2 or 3 laps longer during this first stint. So it's all to play out, of course, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, Jordan looking fairly quick at the moment to be bringing this margin down. They're all closing on Brexit though, of course.
Of course, remember that Dennis Jordan has won 3 races in the Formula Sim Racing World Championship, including in his first race season, winning at the Dutch Grand Prix, winning as well as Azure and Belgium last year. I nearly said Azerbaijan, but it was AZU, not AZE. I was getting really confused. We're not racing Azerbaijan for a good few years, which I'm pretty sure Sana Callas did quite well in, if I remember correctly, back in 2019, but it was a fair while ago, so forgive me memory. I actually wasn't even commentating on Formula Sim Racing World Championship at that point. I'm pretty sure it was James Kirk that day. But either way, our focus as we ride on board with Noah Roivers, medium tyres. The expectation here is that there's going to be, whilst some are going soft, medium, some are going soft, medium, soft, which is the strategy which we were expecting Alex Siebel to be on. I don't know about you, Ewan, which one you'd prefer to be on. I'd kind of rather be on this one. I'd rather be on the mediums now and the softs later.
Well, obviously everyone looks like a genius at the end. It's hard to tell now, but yes, I would agree. On paper, I would agree. You always want to be on the faster, in my mind anyway. You always want to be on the faster tyre towards the end, because if there are guys around you, then you've got a much better chance of finishing ahead of them if you're on softs, of course. So. Yeah, I would say so for now, but who knows really how it's going to play out. We may see Roivers really, not gain anywhere near as much time as we were expecting in the final stint. So we've all got to wait for it to play out, of course, as the race leader, Janis Braksok, into the pit lane, leaves once again for Arnaud's competition, and medium tyres for him on this occasion. He won't be going to the end on those. More than half the race on these is... impossible. So he'll be making time now, but he won't be going to the end.
Jan Vosnitzer also into the pit lane. Not necessarily sure as to why. Cam, Roger, any reasons as to why Jan Vosnitzer was into the pit lane there again?
I'm not sure. Maybe just switching up the strategy, but yeah, a bit of a weird one, because obviously Braksok is a few seconds up the road, so he's really actually trying to make this work. He's only, sort of Siebel was spun around, but he's only sort of 4 seconds behind Siebel now, so he's definitely going to be able to make up some places from doing this. But Jan being that sort of 7-8 seconds behind him, I don't know if he's going to be able to make that work. We'll have to see, but he's obviously turning on to something, because 30 laps to the end on these mediums is a bit too far, really, all things considered, especially if you want to have some good pace at the end.
Well, Janis Braksok going to clear Laurent Keersmakers here. Should be fairly easy. No, he's going to back out. That's a wise move. That was a wise move. Try and make it down into the final corner rather than through the final section. It's not an easy position to make that move, but you understand that he's going to be losing time every single corner that is ticked off, this time into the DRS, potentially with a little bit of push to pass, and this should be a pretty easy move. Down the inside of Laurent Keersmakers and already back up into 7th position. So 1 ticked off already.
Yeah, you mentioned there that he's going to be losing time, and he certainly did. Nearly 1 second lost on that time compared to Colin Spork. This is the moment where he's supposed to be gaining, of course, because he's on those new tyres. Of course, mediums, it's a little bit different. It won't be quite a repeat of what we saw during the first round of pit stops, but he just still needs to be gaining time. Let's not forget, everybody's still got 1 stop remaining in this race, we think, out front at the very least. And certainly the likes of Spork, Jordan, Siebel, etc. definitely do have 1 stop remaining. So has Braksok. So he just needs to catch them here. He just needs to start making some inroads.
Sander Callas into the pit lane as well to make his second stop of the afternoon onto soft tyres, confirming that as being a 3-stop strategy for yet another one of our runners inside the Formula Sim Racing World Championship, or at least a 3-stopper, to be perfectly honest, reminding you that how the strategy works near as is pretty much the expectation. They've got a free choice of compound between soft, mediums and hards. They just need to use 2. There's no requirement as to how many of one compound, like what we do within the Indy Pro Championship, where we force them to run the hard tyres a couple of times. This is just wide open, and why not? Sander Callas, by the way, very aggressive move down the inside of Ivan Leonov to pick up 12th position. So another bit of progress being made as Alex Siebel right on the rear end of Callas's teammates. Oh, shoot. He
certainly is, and he'll want to get through pretty quickly. You'd expect Siebel to be quicker here. let's not forget that issue with Callas earlier on has put him back here, and Zooks is into the pit lane anyway, so there's going to be no problems there. And he's going to get the benefit of DRS as well, of course, which is very nice indeed for the German, and he'll be making use of that down into turn 1. But yeah, all about running his own race and trying to scoop up as many points as possible throughout the remainder of this race now. Trying to add, of course, to his wonderful top 10 tally, which is growing by the race.
Now, I will ask you this now again. Now, we've had it at the start of the race, and as we hit the halfway point, who do you think is going to win the race from this point? Because this is it. It is wide open. This is why we love this right now, because you can genuinely pick quite a few drivers here that could be victorious. The likes of Colin Spork, the likes of Dennis Jordan. Hey, even still, of course, Janis Brackshot, who we're on board with. I wouldn't even know where to begin.
Yeah, I reckon I can make a very good case for the entire top 5 actually, and maybe Vosnicker as well. So yeah, you're right. It's a bit of a mess right now, but I'm going to stick by Jordan. I don't want to change my prediction because. Yeah, I think he's still looking pretty strong. We said a little bit earlier on that Colin Spork is not a driver you want to give 4 seconds to, but Jordan's wiped away 3 of those in the last few moments. We haven't been watching them because there's been other stuff going on, not least to this man here, Janis Brackstock. But Jordan's been making inroads, kind of unannounced, almost creeping up to the back of Spork right now, and still looking very, very quick at the very least. If their strategy is the right one, then it's going to be between those two.
Yeah, like I say, absolutely fascinating. As we go back up to Dennis Jordan, you can see that gap has completely disappeared. It's nearly it is really sub 1 second as Marocek and Keersmakers battle it out at the final corner. Marocek picking up 6th position from Keersmakers, but that one's going to be side by side down towards the first corner. Keersmakers backing out. Jan Vosnitzer closing in on those medium tyres, obviously after making 2 stops this afternoon, trying to throw something completely different into the mix to see what is going to happen. And to be fair, I've always said in races like this, sometimes experimenting on strategy, why not? Why not just give it a go? Because you never know how it's going to turn out, and to win at this sort of level, you can either do it through speed or you can just see what happens on strategy and give it a go. Exactly,
yeah, and I think that's the kind of mindset that Brackstock has taken into this. But by the looks of things, you think being the leader, he might not take very many risks, of course, because he's got the lead. He wants to hold on to what he's got, but he's gone out and been very aggressive in this race, taken on the alternate strategy, you might say, not chosen to do any tyre saving, and he's just gone for it. And of course, to finally get a win at this level for him would be absolutely fantastic. He hasn't managed it just yet, despite pole positions and podium positions that he's been getting year after year. He's never quite managed to get that elusive race win, and today very much could be that day, and it would be remembered by him and by many for a very long time.
No DRS still for Dennis Jordan, despite being fairly close. Not close enough, as here comes Jan Vosnitzer to the inside of Keersmakers. Should be a nice easy move down into the final corner. Obviously Edge eSports not really fighting this one quite as hard. Not quite in the position they were a couple of years ago, obviously, when they had Petr Berliak taking race victories, challenging for World Championships even in the 2020 season that began obviously around here. And Berliak took the one fairly late into the season. Unfortunately, a couple of issues later on with various wheel issues and such, and then his departure, of course, to Williams eSports kind of left Edge in an average spot, as Vosnitzer having a bit of wild internet moments. But I mean, to be fair, I think they still did quite well. They're both inside the top 10, so fair enough to Edge.
Yeah, just solid so far. Not quite the levels of where they were when they had Berliak. But if you remember when they did have the 2015 World Champ, it was a bit of a one-man band, to be honest. Yep. Berliak was certainly pulling his more than his weight in that team. And ever since he's left, they've kind of been sinking to the midfield. But certainly a team that will be aiming to get up there once again and do well. Certainly got the potential. They've got the right things in place for that to happen. They just need everything to fall together, so to speak, and there's no reason why they can't be right up there in the near future.
Is this the opportunity then for Dennis Jordan to take over the race lead from Colin Spork, because as close as he's ever been, does have DRS, bit of push to pass as well, but just that was defence from Colin Spork That's it. He may not have DRS in that position. It's quite a love push to pass, actually, because you use it strategically. And it's one of those things where it's fair for everyone because everyone has the same amount to start the race. It's not biased. It's not about, who are you following behind? What are you in position of? Push to pass is equal and unbiased. It is just, you have a button. It'll make the car a little bit quicker and it might help you make an overtake. But they can also use it to defend as well.
Yeah, exactly. It does become a bit of a push to defend, to be honest, at some points as well, as we just seen for Spork there. But yeah, it's not a very long boost, only 100 seconds throughout the race, which seems like a lot, but it's not really when you think about it. If you used it for a whole lap, then you'd be out pretty much. So that's the kind of thing that you have to kind of manage throughout the race. And yeah, it was something that we may see a little bit later on. If somebody's really struggling to defend from anyone, then we know that all the push to pass will be drained out. And yeah, it looks like Sport's going to need all of it here to keep Jordan behind. The Red Bull man looking very, very strong now, and Sport doesn't look like he's going to be able to defend for too long here, really.
Yeah, I don't really know which kind of do you really want to burn all of your push to pass now? You only get 100 seconds of it. Now, you can use it however much you want over a lap. You can use it for the entire lap if you really wanted to. As Dennis Jordan closing in an awful lot, they're going to hook up the late apex in the final corner, and we'll have DRS once again. Colin Spork straight back over to the left-hand side of the track, more so to break slipstream than to defend, and just to basically leave it in the position. A bit late on the move there, especially with the double move. And Dennis Jordan to the outside for Oracle Red Bull Racing eSports. This time he might make it stick. He's got to get to the inside of T2, but beautifully defended from Colin Spork. We saw this not too long ago between Alex Siebel and Jan Vosnitzer, only this time Spork is going to hang on. The outside line prevails at turn 2. What does Dennis Jordan do up to 4?
Thought about the dive, but decided not to go for it there. You don't really want to get stuck up on the inside of that corner there. You can spin quite easily, and he didn't want to before that at all. But in the end, it was fairly good defending from Colin Spork. Not too late down the front straight, but not early either by any stretch of the imagination. Jordan forced around the outside. Spork didn't let him take too much of an advantage down the inside at 2. It was good defending, good racing between the two. But it looks like Spork's living on borrowed time here. A late dive into the hairpin, but no move.
Oh my goodness, that was about as close to drama as you could get. These two, they are racing hard this afternoon. Of course, still waiting a final pit stop from them before they go into the medium tyres, potentially heading in the sort of 5 to 10 lap region from this point. Probably not quite 10, more so definitely in the 5s. We'll have to wait and see from these two, but obviously Dennis Jordan wants to assume the race lead way before this point as they head down into the final corner. DRS is going to be open once again, and once again going for that late apex.
Yeah, is it going to really produce a good exit though? Not quite on this occasion. Spork defending to the left-hand side, then goes to the right, breaking the slipstream here. It's not really too much of a gain for Jordan, although Spork still defends and right round the outside for the Red Bull. Gives him the inside for turn 2, but Spork once again just drifts his team, go a little bit wide through 1 there to block the inside through 2. Very smart defending from him. It can seem a little bit aggressive at times, but very smart defending, and it's all allowing everybody to catch up from behind. These two losing a bit of time now.
Yeah, not too much, as once again very close to the rear end from DJ there. But to be fair, the defence on that time was very good from Colin Spork. Yes, a little bit aggressive, but it was proactive. And I've always said proactive defending is the option. Let's see this time going into the double apex right-hander. Dennis Jordan does have a bit of an overlap. He is trying to go around the outside. His teammate tried this one a little bit on Vosnitzer and was pushed off on the departure of that corner as we close down now into the hairpin. Surely not close enough this time is Dennis Jordan. We'll keep his eye on the rear wing. He definitely knows who he's battling with. Don't need driver labels to tell you in this championship. It is, of course, Colin Spork.
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to try and get through. Jordan, you expect so anyway, but just struggling to do so. And even if he does decide to stay behind now, Spork's still going to be taking some defensive lines and losing time anyway, so you might as well go for it, to be honest. Coming down to the hairpin here, the final turn, there may be an opportunity, but once again it's going to be tricky. Slipstream, and the inside line will be open for him to go for this, and it looks like he's going to take his opportunity.
Oh, that was super close as they were deciding who was going to take the DRS. Colin Spork says, no, thank you very much. I'm going to dive straight into pit lane. Another sort of 16, 17 lap stint there from Colin Spork. Cam, is this on strategy, or is this just trying to stop him from battling with Dennis Jordan?
I think this is close enough, but maybe a lap or two early. But I think he's trying to get a bit of an undercut to try and break away from Dennis Jordan. I wouldn't be surprised if Dennis is actually going to come in, because Dennis, I believe, has also got the medium to the end, so he can afford a bit of a longer stint at the end. But this could be quite crucial laps for Spork in this battle.
Yeah, just as they were battling behind, he's thankful to come out into a fair amount of clean air. Cassandra Callas down the inside of Laurent Kiersmakers. To be fair, for Dennis Jordan right now, if he pits, based on the fact that Colin Spork has come out into clean air, you could basically suggest that Dennis Jordan is going to come out in the same section of racetrack. So for me, Ewan, well, I don't know what you would do. I would copy.
It seems like a good idea to kind of cover that one off. And he may well decide to, but also he may have such trust in his own ability and his own strategy that, I'm just going to stay out here and stick to the plan. It really depends at the end of this. I think if he stays out for this one, then he'll be staying out for a good few more. But he could well very much be in at the end of this lap. I would probably be in as well, to be honest. I would personally want to cover off Sport and not let him get too far away. But Jordan did let Sport get quite far away earlier on and was able to close a 4-second margin. So he may put faith in his own abilities here.
I mean, if I had the abilities of Dennis Jordan, true. I certainly would put faith into it, as he is going to stay out. He is keeping onto this racetrack. Dennis Jordan continues to lead here at the Malaysian Grand Prix. Noah Roivers under pressure from Janis Brakshock, the 3-stopper at the moment. 2 completed, a third one expected as he tries to pass the Flying Dutchman. This time should be a nice easy move to the outside of turn 1. Very defensive from Noah Roivers, but straight back in to the slipstream of Janis Brakshock. I think realising that Brakshock's probably not one of the people that he's battling with today, although both of them with 1 stop left to go within this race. I think they are going to be battling a bit later on. It's just for what position?
Well, I think that was the battle there for Roivers, really. If he wanted to keep Brakshock behind, I don't think he's going to see him again. But you never know. Brakshock doing a very good job, though, with these tyres at the moment. He's got 8 seconds to catch up to Jordan, who's still flying on those softs. Despite the fact they're quite old at this stage, Brakshock should be arguably at least at the same pace, and if not, maybe a bit quicker. And he's even losing a little bit of time through some of these turns. I think the battle between Spork and Jordan has slowed them down a little bit and allowed the Hungarian to get into the picture a little bit, but he might still be too far away. He's going to come steaming up to the back of them late on. In the final few laps, he's going to pit, maybe about 10 laps time, maybe a little bit less. He'll be in, he'll have the softs on, and he'll be steaming up to the back of them. But will he get there or not as Spork gets through or tries to on David Mrocek? Bit of a physical battle between the two.
Yeah, Mrocek making a bit of contact there down into the hairpin, just diving in a little bit too deep. But either way, Colin Spork now with the track position. Dennis Jordan, by the way, considering the amount of laps he did on the previous stint, it was 19 laps he did on his first set of softs, really pushing it deep into this race. Obviously doesn't want to be on those mediums for any longer than is absolutely required. The last lap time from him was a 35.4, which is obviously a very respectable time. Last lap time from Janis Brakshock, 35.3. The last lap time, let's see what it is across the line from Colin Spork, 35.5. Yeah, how interesting.
Yeah, interesting, but we've got to factor in, it wasn't exactly a clean comparison.
Correct.
Because of the battle with Mrocek, but it is still telling. And that might be why Jordan stayed out a little bit longer. Maybe now he'll come in, now that he knows that there'll be a little bit more clean air around.
I don't know. I mean, obviously the next car, the issue is that if he comes in now and he comes out around Colin Spork, the next few cars he's going to catch will be Spork's teammates, the likes of Jan Vojnica, the likes of Noah Roivers that he'll have to come across as well. You don't want to meet those on a racetrack like this, because you know they're going to fight way harder than others, because they're trying to assist their teammate in, or even sister teammate in victory. And fair enough, they're going to battle hard, obviously well within the rules within the Formula SimRacing World Championship, but they're going to fight hard regardless. And it's kind of those things of you want to keep out of that danger zone, and that's kind of what Dennis Jordan did with the first stint, trying to leave it out to 19 laps. Now doing very much the similar thing, just sitting out there on the racetrack, having faith in that pace that we know Dennis Jordan's got, and just continuing to light up the timesheets. And to be fair, why not? Very Jane Simoncic, must say.
Yeah, a bit of a throwback to the previous years, the Simoncic era, as you could call it. But yeah, Sander Carlos at the moment trying to kind of do the same to David Mrocek, to what Colin Spork did anyway. Although it looks like Mocek is going to be into the pit lane here. It do take some strange lines into the pit lane. It does look
bizarre.
a bit weird. But
Awful pit lane.
because obviously taking the early apex because it's not as sharp of a turn, it does look a bit weird. But there we are. Mocek's in the pit lane, and looks like Lauren Kiersmakers is going to be making his way through here onto Zoltzook, or at least trying to for the next couple of laps.
Yeah, truly terrible pit lane entry. I mean, I despise pit lane entry like this because all it's doing is it's encouraging you to. I mean, think of this: if you're sat behind someone, the fact that your pit lane entry line is to dive it down the inside of them, completely carve them up, and fire it straight across the racing line to get down into pit lane. How dumb is that?
You'd hope that people would be intelligent enough to not do that. To be honest,
These are racers, man. They're not intelligent. They're just fast.
I don't know.
I
don't have a problem with it personally.
It's
if
terrible
you
pit lane entry.
if
It's not the
you
worst
can't
one.
deal with just slowing down to get into a pit entry, then I think it's a problem. But there we are.
Austria is the #1 worst pit
that is
entry in
bad. I agree,
motorsport. That is a terrible pit lane entry. Kind of get why it is the way it is, because obviously there's a nature reserve on the inside, which does make things a little bit difficult. But at the same time, awful pit lane entry. This one's pretty bad. South Korea, Yongan, whatever that circuit was called. Terrible pit lane entry as well there. Slow down around a completely flat out blind right-hander. Genius. There are some dumb ones in the world of motorsport. I definitely would put this one on the list.
I think it's fine. The Austria is definitely one of those that's bad. Although you can't do a lot about what's already in the way. It's not like they can.
Unfortunately, it's just how it is. Yeah.
Yes, it's just how it is, unfortunately. But anyway, Dennis Jordan's going to be making use of that pit road in a few moments' time, you'd imagine. But when is it going to be? I'm already surprised at how long he's taking this, actually.
Yeah, we'll use this time to bring back in Cameron Roger and ask of Dennis Jordan, going quite deep on the soft tyres, but keeping them well under control right now. Pace looks good.
Yeah, he did so in that first stint. He went sort of towards the 20 lap region. So he's doing that similar again. And obviously it gets easier as the race goes on because the car gets lighter and lighter. There's no refueling this year. So he starts the race pretty heavy on fuel. And we saw this in the pro race earlier with Grankvist. He did quite a long stint on the soft at the beginning. And then he used 2 sets of mediums for a shorter time. So he could basically full push on those mediums. He didn't have to save or anything. And I'm thinking that's probably what Dennis is doing here. He's going to have a pretty easy time of the mediums. He needs to use them because he's only used the softs at this moment in time. So I think he's going to just give himself an easy stint at the end. And whilst Brackshock also needs to make a pit stop, the longer Dennis goes, the less advantage of newer tyres Brackshock is going to have.
Well, either way, this is the time Dennis Jordan has taken his opportunity to dive it down into the pit lane. Janis Brackshock's going to retake the lead of the Malaysian Grand Prix here as Dennis Jordan will come down into his box. The only thing I have fear of, genuinely, in this scenario is Jan Woźnica, who's obviously on a 3-stop strategy, who's ahead of Colin Spork, who will put up quite a fight to Dennis Jordan and might well potentially rob us of a very pretty battle here. Let's take a look and see. Woźnica goes through, Colin Spork goes through, obviously, and Dennis Jordan out not too far behind.
Yeah, he's not too far behind. There's a couple of seconds between them, but I've got absolutely no worries at all that he's going to be able to get back to the rear end of Colin Spork here. As you mentioned, though, the real worry is Jan Woźnica. How easy is it going to be for Jordan to get through here? How far is Woźnica going to take this? How far is he willing to take this in defence of Jordan and in defence of his teammate, arguably, Colin Spork, or sort of half teammate, if you like. Colin Spork there. That's going to be the real interesting battle. Could even be more crucial than the eventual battle itself between Spork and Jordan.
Yeah, I guess in a sense, with it being like a half teammate, it's essentially like he's a brother from another mother, but in a racing team point of view, So, I guess it kind of works. Obviously, Woźnica's not really just going to step aside and pull on the brakes and allow Colin Spork to pass, but I just don't think he's going to fight down into turn 1. Ideally, for Dennis Jordan, he's just sat there looking at them being like, please pit this lap, please pit this lap, please pit this lap. But if Woźnica's going to help his teammate, I don't think he can. I think he will stay out. I think he will try and manipulate this battle just a little bit deep though. Speaking of which, into the final corner, and this is Colin Spork coming straight through.
Yeah, he certainly is. A bit of a defence being put up here to the right hand side of the road.
Nice.
But there we are. Spork's going to be getting through easily in the end, and Woźnica not expected to come back at him into turn number 1. I'm expecting Woźnica to actually wait it out until he can put the softs on till the end, actually. So he's not going to be coming in for another couple of laps just yet. As he goes down towards turn 1, he is giving this a half go. Spork had to defend from him there.
That was a little bit of defensive action, yes, from Colin Spork, just trying to keep them at bay and keep his eyes on the car directly behind. But I don't think Voznica was ever really having any major intent to come back down the inside. If that was Dennis Jordan, I think we'd see a slightly different scenario. Like you say, slightly defensive, but left the door nicely open for Colin Spork to come down the inside of the final corner with 17 laps remaining in the Malaysian Grand Prix. 9.4 seconds is the gap between this battle and, of course, Janus Brakshock, who we are awaiting for one final stop, which may well happen within the next sort of 2-3 laps. We'll go onto the soft tyres as he'll ride it out to the end of this Grand Prix. Dennis Jordan has had fantastic pace all afternoon. Now looks to get past Voznica.
He's going to want to get through here as quickly as possible, of course, to give himself as many laps as possible at getting through on Spork. But how easy is that going to be? And once again, how hard is Voznica going to fight it? It could be very crucial in the outcome of this race. And of course, the fact that he will have DRS as well from Spork, or should do, down into the final corner might just help him along as well. Although not a great final corner, he has got DRS now, and that is going to make Jordan's life more difficult as well.
Yeah, let's see. We're obviously not going to go down the inside here, isn't it? So left the door wide open, plenty wide open for Dennis Jordan to do something, to send it in a little bit deep. But this time, better drive off the corner from Jan Voznica, but I'm sure a bit of push to pass will be used from both of them. Look at that. You can see even from the speed that Voznica used there. There goes the defence over. Now comes Dennis Jordan to the outside of the first corner. He's thrown it all the way in. He's gone all the way around the outside. Nice, easy move. Beautiful stuff. Second position or third position is his on the road. It will become second once Brakshock pits, and now his eyes are fully on Colin Spork.
Yeah, that was a very nice move indeed. Very late on the brakes, of course, but he's got the tyre life to actually do that on the outside there, and he put his car just far enough in front of Voznica so that he couldn't get his nose chopped off into turn 2. That's what we've been seeing Spork doing, just kind of angling off that corner and keeping the inside line into 2. Jordan put his car far enough alongside, far enough ahead of Voznica there, to make sure that he couldn't do that to the Red Bull driver, and so Jordan's move was complete basically before they got into turn 2 really, and now he can set his eyes on Spork. This is going to be for the lead. They've got to keep their eyes on Brakshock, just make sure that he doesn't get invited to the party here, but yeah, for now it's just a battle between the two of them.
See, for people like me who don't like Sepang, this race is always a good example to be like, why? I don't like driving it. That's the main thing. But the racing rounds here, it's a tricky racetrack as Brakshock heads into the pit lane for his final stop. It's a tricky racetrack, but boy, the racing it provides is absolutely top-notch, as this will now become the battle for the race lead in the second round of the Formula Sim Racing World Championship, live all across VCO eSports as well as FSR. A big shout out to our sponsors of 3D Wrap, Masita Esports and SimLab, of course. Colin Spork hanging on for now. Just deep in the slipstream is Dennis Jordan. No opportunity to pass just now, but this will be a thrilling fight down to the end of the race, surely.
Yeah, absolutely. It will be 9.5 seconds, nearly 10 seconds back to Brakshock, who's only got Voznica in the way. And I'm pretty sure Voznica will be pitting, if I'm not mistaken.
I do believe so.
He's done 2 stops, and he's on the mediums now, so maybe not. Not really sure, really.
He's been on them for a while, though.
At this stage. Yeah, I can't quite remember when, though, which is quite bad, as Jordan is having a look.
Yeah, let's see. He's gone for the cutback. Oh, that's not really the wisest one for Dennis Jordan to give a go. He gave it a very good look, though, to get down the inside of Colin Spork. Goodness me. That was one of those ones where you look and you go, nope, 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 and you're trying to back out of it, and that's when the contact happens. Dennis Jordan semi-committed and then backed out of it, but boy, that was close.
It was very close indeed. It's those half-hearted ones that really do provide the most problems, but hopefully more of a fully fledged attempt on this occasion, either into the final turn or the first one. He expects probably the first few corners in that complex there. Jordan's going to give this one another go. Just gets up to the back of him towards the final corner, and now the all-important exit. Spork trying to block him as much as possible in terms of the exit and then get a good one himself. And he has got a good exit here.
Yeah, that was a nice one, but a bit of weaving there from Dennis Jordan. Not necessarily sure what that was about. Maybe a let's not fight too hard, just carry on.
Oh.
Which you wouldn't do to another contender for a race lead.
Brakshock's off at the final turn. Brakshock is off.
Oh my goodness.
has there been a brake failure or something? Something's gone wrong. We saw a brake failure, of course, for
it's disconnection.
no Roivers. Disconnection, it looks like.
I think, it might not be. There might be more to the story. He did go, I think you might be right. I think it might well be some form of brake failure. We'll take a look at a replay. We'll just see them coming through the S's section now, and Dennis Jordan right on the rear end of Colin Spork. I do believe it might well be, as you predicted, a slight bit of brake failure there, which we have seen before in the Formula Sim Racing World Championship. In fact, we saw it on the very last lap, going down to the very last braking zone for Noah Roivers, who's presently in third, as Dennis Jordan's on the attack.
Yeah, that's almost the sole reason I mentioned it, to be honest. So it looks like history repeating itself there. Breaks up with brake failure. Very unfortunate. So what was looking like a very exciting battle is now just a two-horse race, and Jordan wants to take the lead, and he has through the penultimate turn.
What a dive, and DRS is still his. Dennis Jordan, the German, looks to hit the front of the Malaysian Grand Prix with a sensational move down the inside. Colin Sport coming back at the final corner obviously will pick up DRS. That weave certainly wasn't for the let's continue with this sort of nice order. Now it might well be defence from Dennis Jordan. Colin Sport, DRS pushed to pass, wide open. Unicorns of Love back to the front. Dennis Jordan to the outside of the first corner. This is how he got past Jan Wojnitzer. This time it's not going to work, as Sport covers it off beautifully.
Once again covers it off really well through turn one, getting the inside for two, and there's no way Jordan can get through, although great run through three, and he's on the outside looking into four here, late on the brakes, around the outside here, gives him the inside for the next corner, if he can hold it there, and he has. So he's got the inside line for the S's, and he might well just about be able to pull this off.
We've seen side-by-side through here a couple of times. This time it works out beautifully for Dennis Jordan, who does indeed hit the front. He made his Formula Sim Racing World Championship debut at this circuit. Unfortunately retired from that race due to a disconnection. This time he is leading half a second. Colin Spork right behind. What a battle. We'll take a look at a replay to see what happened with Janis Brakshock as we ride on board down into the final corner. Potential brake failure. We're not 100% sure onto the brakes. Does seem less so that it might be a brake failure, and potentially more so a wheel disconnection or something. We're confirming that was not a brake failure, because he did come to a stop before smashing into the barrier. So at least we've got that one sorted. Yes. It wasn't just the gravel trap that brought him to a stop, but it did seem a technical fault.
It certainly wasn't anything we can see visually there, was it? Maybe something going on personally there. Maybe had to stop for some other reason. Or a wheel failure, or any number of issues could have happened there. But Dennis Jordan, in slightly more important things, with 12 laps to go now, pulling away from Sport. It was very important for Sport to keep Jordan behind him there, I think, because we've seen throughout this race that Jordan has been arguably faster than Sport. Now that he's got the clean air in front of him, he's got the race win within his sights, he's beginning to pull away.
Well, it was Mitchie Hoyer who said it yesterday, having a very brief chat with him whilst he was running strategy for Burst in the 1,000 miles of Sebring that you were commentating on in the Virtual Endurance Championship. And he was saying things like, realistically, this championship, it really should be Dennis Jordan's. Now, that's not me to say that, in 10 rounds' time we'll definitely be crowning him, but it's the fact that he really is the favourite now, especially with winning Indy Pro at the end of last year and the start of this one. The focus should be on the German. We were hyping him up a fair amount last round, and did manage to sneak his way onto the podium courtesy of the issues for Noah Roivers. But this is the examples as to why we think that Dennis Jordan is one of the favourites for the 2022 Formula Sim Racing World Championship. It's just the speed and consistency, and in a tyre management race like this, he just has it.
He certainly does. I would like to give a bit of a word to this man, though, Alex Siebel. I think people are discounting... Well, he says that as he nearly spins. Great. I think people are discounting him a little bit quicker than maybe they should. Let's not forget about his previous results in World Championships before. Second place, runner-up to no other than Ewan Simoncic last season, which is no mean feat, beating out Mitchie Hoyer in the final race to come home second. Was fourth in his debut season. He's only ever finished outside of the top 10 once. It's in the time he's been here. And if it wasn't for the issues he's had in this race here today, I think he would be right up there.
I agree. I think he would be very much contending, and we'd be looking at a potential Oracle Red Bull Racing eSports 1-2 over this Grand Prix without those issues. Hey, 10 laps still to go. Maybe we still might. He is on the soft tyres and does have that gap to Colin Spork of around 5 seconds. So if we can clear Noah Roivers here, we still might see a Red Bull 1-2. Hopefully no multi-21 though. That did happen here, and and that was Red Bull. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. Obviously got to clear Noah Roivers. That is the main target right now, and that is not an easy target to pass, especially considering Noah Roivers is going to be a bit hungry after San Marino. Obviously looking for that podium.
Yeah, he certainly is. And we'll just have to see, really. It's going to be a big fight. In terms of getting second, I think it really depends on how quickly Sewell can get through on Roivers. If he does it about now, then I don't think Spork stands much of a chance of holding on to second place, looking at the way he is slightly falling apart in the latter portions of this race. And this is what I mean in terms of a World Championship distance. Spork, I don't think the Imola race win is the last race win we've seen of him this season, but I still don't think he's going to be in contention come the final round of this season, because these long, difficult tyre-saving races where you need to be consistent and just pick up those points without problems, almost without appearing on our cameras, which sometimes happens to Jordan, for example. I don't think he's great at it just for the moment, as Siebel has another attempt.
Yeah, to the outside here of Noah Roivers. He's giving this one a go on Roivers' teammate Jan Vosnitzer to the inside of the second corner. We've seen this move work a couple of times as the cars just go so slow through here. It's not as if you're driving any form of open wheel car. It's like you're driving a tractor. It just goes so slow with so little downforce. Alex Eagle back to the outside of 4, right around there. Should give him the inside for 5 and the sweepers, but that wasn't a particularly great drive off for the Red Bull man. Is he going to be able to clear Colin Spork? Not quite, but Noah Roivers just manages to back out of it, and Alex Siebel takes over third spot. Spork the next one down the road. Good 5 seconds though.
Yeah, he's got 9.5 laps to do it though. I think he might well be able to get there. We'll have a look at the lap times, of course, when things normalise again. But Siebel's got to look in here, and there could well be a Red Bull 1-2 coming up. You never know. But yeah, this is such an exciting situation in the FSR World Championship, to be honest, with the most open World Championship we've had for, 4 years, probably? Certainly in the Simoncic era, it wasn't this open in terms of who were going to win, because it was who can beat Simoncic. In this case, it's who can actually go and take this title. And, we're throwing loads of names around. Even some names that we weren't quite expecting, like Jan Vosnick, Noah Roivers and Colin Spork, who've been up there in the first few rounds. Can they possibly do something? Just a word on Michi Hoyer as well, who's not here this time around, and after not a great result at Imola either. I think it's going to be quite difficult for him to come back even from here. I mean, for me, he was actually the favourite coming into the first race, but I think, it's going to be difficult for him already from here.
Yeah, I think with Mitchie, maybe. I still think there's a maybe. It depends on his motivation. And yes, there is not very long left to go in this season. I say that as we do round 2, but we mean that in the sense of it's just 10 rounds. There is not long in the season from start to finish. Typically in open world championships and stuff where you're running 20 rounds. We're past the halfway point of the season in that sense. And obviously we've only just started here. It's such a short calendar, which does provide its fair share of entertainment, but does mean it's critical to make every single race. Of course, Mitchie Hoyer recovering from COVID. I'd still say it's not over. I mean, if he comes back, obviously, ifs and buts and all that lot, but if he comes back and then races the way that he did at the start of 2021, nothing is impossible. Absolutely nothing is impossible. Now, it would be pretty tricky to come back, especially with how the point structure is this year. Do I rip into it? No, yes, maybe. It's a bit harsh in the lack of points difference between the race win, because that would make sure that he was still in it. With there being such a small margin between first and second, it doesn't reward victories quite as much, and means it is quite hard to miss around and then come back and dominate. So there you go. There's my spiel. But I'd still say nothing's impossible.
No, nothing is impossible, and this point system is infinitely better than the one we had before. Like it. I really do like it, honestly. I can't really stand the FIA one, so I'm very glad to see this point system with us here this year for FSR. But as Zooks looks like he's going to get himself around the outside of Keysmakers for a nice little move for P8 there into turn number 1. But nothing is impossible for Hoyer. I just think his lack of ability to bounce back from a poor race is going to be really damaging for him because, as you mentioned, had a storming start to 2021. It didn't look like anybody could stop him. But as soon as that really rich run of form came to an end, it was very blowing hot and cold, let's say, for the rest of the season. So that is not going to benefit you particularly throughout the season, particularly in when you're pitting yourself up against the likes of Jordan and Siebel, who just will not have off days.
Yeah, honestly, looked like a completely different driver after that. And I kind of think that had that issue not happened at Zandvoort, and even if Petter Burleck had won that race he was battling with in the BS Williams car, it was a tight battle between the two of them. But even if he'd finished second that day, I genuinely think we would be looking at Michi Hoyer as the 2021 Formula Sim Racing World Championship, which is very easy to say. Very easy to say, very hard to prove. But that's just based on the form that there was at the start of that season. It was, like I say, peerless. Absolutely peerless. Even Jerne Simoncic was, to be perfectly honest, well outclassed by Michi Hoyer over those first few races. And yes, there were some issues, but, fair enough. But it was just the consistency, the relentless consistency that Michi Hoyer had. It was Jerne Simoncic-esque. In that sense. So, and also, he knows he can beat Jerne Simoncic. We've seen that before, including here when he beat him going around the outside of the final corner and on the harder tyres. Of course, wear difference between the two of them, but the hard tyres had kept in on that car quite nicely in 2020. But it was still a fantastic move and proof that he can go toe to toe with the very best, thus proving that I wouldn't say he's out of it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I would say that he's a little bit too far adrift at this stage. Because if you think about it,
if we're at the old points.
Well, there we go again. If you think about it, he's already 6 points behind Jordan before today. He's going to lose 30 to him now. Yeah, that's a lot of points to make up. If he wins every race, then there's nothing that anybody else can do to stop him. I still think that it's going to be a bridge too far, quite possibly. And we don't know how he's going to come out the other side of being affected by COVID as well, because for some people it does linger for a little while, so it may not be he might not turn up in 3 weeks' time and suddenly be 100% Michi Hoyer. He might be a shell of his former self just for a few races to come. You just don't know how long it's going to linger for.
Mate, he's listening in. You are ripping him apart. The poor man. Any hope that he had is just gone.
Sorry, but I'm just...
We are wishing you the best.
Yes, we are.
Michi, we hope to see you back in the Formula Sim Racing World Championship at some point in the near future, and obviously best of luck with the recovery, and hoping that you're enjoying the race that we are seeing before us here in the second round of the Formula Sim Racing World Championship. Dennis Jordan, Colin Spork, Alex Siebel leading 1, 2 and 3. Siebel is closing that gap down fairly quickly to Colin Spork. It's Noah Roivers and Jan Wojnitsa, the NetRex P1 Sim Grand Prix cars that are running 4th and 5th with the fastest lap of the race going the way of Wojnitsa. Sander Kallas, David Marocek, Zolf Schuch, Laurent Kiersmakers and Carlos Martin inside the top 10. Fair recovery from Carlos Martin, but considering what was there to grab in the early stage of the race, I think might be fairly disappointed with a 10th place running late on in this race.
Yeah, absolutely. It's few people going to be disappointed with themselves, I suspect. One man I've been very impressed with, though, I have to say, David Marocek in 7th place right now. Not really spoken about him, but yeah, he's right up there. Considering the fact he's not really taking aim at this season like everybody else, he's shown a good account of himself once again.
Like I say, I agree. I mean, I've been a critic of David Marocek in the past with his racecraft and stuff, but this race for him has been spot on. Like I say, to have jumped in, I know it's not a last minute jump in, right? It's not as if he was told 20 minutes before the race, off you go lad, we just need you to jump in for the weekend. But still, this is a car he's fairly familiar with, so at least there's that. He does have experience racing it and winning championships and stuff in this car, so fair enough. But to have been away from it for a little while, one round, and just jumped back in though, and kind of not expected to really be racing at this point. I agree with you. I think this has been a good performance, a solid performance, not like earth-shattering, but solid. It's what the team needed.
He's beating every other burst driver right now.
Correct.
He's beating all the regulars, so he is doing a solid job. And let's not forget, because of how early the seasons end these days, it's been more than half a year since he did an FSR race, at least in the World Championship, in this kind of format. You mentioned there that he has done other championships in this car, but this series is a little bit unique in the way that it is. So it's a little bit different compared to that. And like I say, he's beating the regulars quite convincingly as well. So solid performance. Not as you say, not earth-shattering, but very solid. And that's all they can ask of him, really, I suppose.
Yeah, and like you say, obviously receiving word from one Mr. Cameron Roger about when he found out. It was on the Friday, which would have been great, aside from the fact that he was racing in the 1,000 miles Sebring in the Virtual Endurance Championship. So it's kind of like, right, I'll practice for that on Sunday. Cool. Yeah. And let's be honest, there's championships you don't really want to jump into with only, to be honest, a few hours practice. It's championships like this.
Yeah, because, as you say, about 9 hours or more of his day will have been taken up on Saturday, so that's pretty much a write-off for him. And he will have not had much practice coming into today, but still trying to hold off Zooks for 7th, as Pignataro not had a particularly great day. It's not been a great day for Arnaud in the end, after Braxock's issues. I think it might have been a screen freeze earlier on we were hearing.
Yeah, we were hearing in our ears and stuff that it was a potential technical issue in the form of screen freezes and such and performance. A little bit of a spin there from Pignataro. Of course, had a great run around Indianapolis. Does require slightly less talent though. Is that harsh? This does continue, of course, down into turn 4 where we rejoined him as he was off the track. That's obviously me being harsh. Pygmy's fine, but I think there's brake issues on this car to some degree. Maybe it is just with the left foot. Maybe it is with the brakes themselves. But either way, that is what the cool kids would classify as a solid F.
Yes, it was not great. Pignataro doesn't like pineapple on pizza, by the way, so I don't like him.
But let's be honest, pineapple on pizza is not ideal, really. Let's be honest. We're not bringing that into here.
Sorry.
About pineapple on pizza. We'll focus on this battle and focus on the positivities of the modern world, not this. I don't hate it, but it's just like, why?
I'm sorry for bringing this in. Seymour looks like he's going to make a move here on Spork, who's going to defend to the inside line into turn number 1. He's going to try and do exactly what his teammate did, is Seymour here, but with a little bit less success. A classic Spork defence into turn 2.
Yeah, nice little cut back. A little bit too much from Spork there as he was trying to cover off, literally locking it down to the apex there at the second corner. I wonder if anyone's going to be in fear of their brakes. Colin Spork hanging on to second, only a few laps left to go. That was a bit of a defensive move from Colin Spork. He was saying to Alex Siebel, you're going to try that move. Sometimes you can usually, but not today.
Yeah, not this late on in the race, that's for sure. Only 3 laps left, and he will certainly. I'm a little bit surprised it's taken Siebel so long to get hit. Spork may be as well, and he may be thinking, I can hold on to this, because with more than 10 laps to go, holding back Dennis Jordan was a bit of a daunting prospect for the race lead. But this is a lot more manageable with only 2.5 laps to go now.
Are we going to see Red Bull Racing eSports 1 and 2? Or are we going to see Colin Spork just hang on? Your World Championship leader, your race winner in the previous race of the season. Spork's there. He's trying to, but it is not going to be easy. Noah Roivers is potentially closing back in the background as well. This time Siebel lifts out of it just into the braking zone. Now potentially being passed off there. A little bit confusing as to what's happened because Siebel's still going to get the DRS. I think it was just a bit of a mistake there from Colin Spork diving it in a little bit too deep. And that was probably one of the easiest moves that Alex Siebel's ever going to get, but he's got to hang on at T1.
He certainly has, and Spork's going to give him a run for his money around the outside. Is Siebel going to do the old Spork defence into 2? He's not, and so Spork's going to dive down the inside into turn 2 instead and try and take that position away, although a long way round through turn 3 and of course turn 4 as well. Siebel might be able to just hold on here inside line, and well, Spork still putting up a fight, but Siebel just about does enough there. Very close.
That was about as close as you like. Siebel threw it in just to try and clear Colin Spork ever so slightly there at turn 1. Fantastic move, great bit of racing. It's obviously not over because Spork will try and fight this one back. I do not know what happened with Colin Spork in the final corner there on the 54th lap of this race, but either way, little bit too deep. Yeah, that was the opportunity Siebel needed, especially with the DRS as well.
It was. He only needed one chance, and he certainly took it. We didn't quite see really what happened to Spork through there. It looked like just a mistake, really. I kind of thought he was actually trying to get a good exit onto the main straight there, but that really wasn't the case. By the end, it looked like it was just a mistake. This is the attempt a little bit earlier. He tried to go around the outside through one, inside for two, but that didn't quite work. So he gave it another go the next time around, and it was a lot easier, really, on the inside line.
Yeah, that was where there was a bit of contact. We'll see this one. Now, for me, I'm not necessarily sure if Spork is trying to go a bit deep, trying to force Siebel to go through the detection point first so Spork can get it and then come straight back through as a defensive move, which we have seen time and time again in various championships and stuff, but a bit weird to see that one either way.
It was. It's almost like he thought the activation line was kind of when it decides who gets the DRS, if you like, but he still gave it a good go through turn 1 and 2 either way. That was a bit of a dive, but it was aggressive but fair at the same time. Gave Siebel room on the outside line. This is what happened from on board. Does he look like he's struggling for grip here, or does he look like he's purposely doing this?
Nah, he's purposely doing that. That is 100% on purpose, trying to get it from the point. We've seen that a couple of times even in this race, but either way, great little battle. Final sector, though, coming up of this Grand Prix. We are on the final lap of the race. And Dennis Jordan, well, he's been the man on form, hasn't he?
He is the man on form at the moment, and he's going to tie up this championship at the top with Colin Spork as well after that late move by Alex Siebel, setting us up very nicely heading into this season. Now, NetRex have been toppled by the looks of things with this Red Bull 1-2.
Yeah, I did ask the question, who was going to be able to find that challenge, of course, to NetRex. It's the expectation that it's Oracle Red Bull Racing eSports. Dennis Jordan looks to come down into the final corner of the race and take his 4th victory in the Formula SimRacing World Championship. Your Indy Pro champion crosses the line in first place after a strategic masterclass. Alex Siebel, he was off in the gravel not very long ago in this race. He's still going to come across the line in second, and it is an Oracle Red Bull Racing eSports 1-2. Colin Spork, 3rd place, and as you were saying, now locks on the championship lead with Dennis Jordan, a race win and 3rd place between the two of them over the opening 2 races of this season. No, Roybers, Jan Vosnitzer, Zanakalis, Marocek and Schuch cross the line to finish what, to be perfectly honest, has been another very entertaining Grand Prix.
Another very entertaining Grand Prix. It was very good indeed, and it's setting us up very nicely for the rest of this season. Excuse me. That was very late from Robin Panzo there, nearly going down the inside of Ivan Leonov, who finishes a lot lower down than he did at Imola, has to be said. He'll look to pick himself up, of course, in a few weeks' time at the 3rd race. But yeah, another great race. I have to say one last thing as well, that great performance from Ground Effect this week. Really didn't have a very good opening round. Sander Kars was only 14th. Zooks didn't finish. 6th and 8th for them this time around. Miles better than they were 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, wow. Like you say, there are some teams, yeah, they start off strong in a season. Some teams take 1, maybe 2 rounds to figure out where everyone else is finding their speed. And that is exactly what Oracle Red Bull Racing eSports have done. They weren't looking top quality at Imola. They were looking good, they were looking decent, but they weren't looking unbelievable. They weren't looking beyond fantastic. They weren't looking, to be honest, almost like the team that we were expecting. Now they are 110%. Yeah,
kind of affirming their favourite status at the start of this championship as Jordan and Siebel, because we keep mentioning it. Where would Siebel have been without that spin at the hands of Sander Kallas, of course, at turn 11, and arguably Jan Vosnicker as well? Where would Siebel have ended up in this race? I really think he would have been in the conversation with Spork as well, and the three of them would have fought it out, and then we really would have seen between the Red Bulls how hard are they willing to fight each other in this early stage in the championship. That would have been very interesting. That will have to wait, of course, for the future rounds, but for now, they can go home knowing that they are arguably the strongest team in FSR at the moment.
I'm going to deduct them a few points, though. Can you guess what for?
A lack of donuts?
A lack of donuts. Where are they, lads? Come on. That is, and also, come on, at least do a reverse into the garage as well. We'll take a look then at our final standings. Obviously, provisional in a sense because they're going to have to be looked over by race control. But Dennis Jordan, Alex Evil, and Colin Spork on your podium. We'll be catching up with those in a few moments' time. Noah Roivers and Jan Vosnitzer for NetRex P1 Sim Grand Prix in 4th and 5th. Sander Callas, Davin Marotchek, Zolt Chuch, and then Laurent Kiersmakers and Damien Scovron round out your top 10. Of course, 6 more finishers in the Malaysian Grand Prix. Carlos Martin for Unicorns of Love, despite qualifying quite well and looking very strong in the early stages, finishes outside of the top 10. Jake Dennehan for Edge Esports, then Ivan Leonov, as you were alluding to earlier, Ewan, finishing way down the order compared to where he was at the first round of the season, just 13th spot for him. Robin Panzar and Tom Oldermenger, with Adam Rainey being the final finisher, and every single one of those finishers being on the lead lap. Pignataro with a late race retirement courtesy of a brake failure, and Janis Brakshock with an issue a bit earlier on in the race from a technical point of view. We'll take a look at the championship standings as well to confirm that Colin Spork and Dennis Jordan 51 points apiece with a first place and a third. Alex Ebel goes up into third position in the championship with Jan Brusnitzer and Noah Roivers directly behind. Pretty much, almost, with the exception of Colin Spork being in first place, pretty much the standings from the race, to be perfectly honest, just with how things have gone. But you can see Ivan Leonov being right up there in 6th place, courtesy of that great finish back in the previous round of the season. It's a good time, though, to take a not only a look at our race results and all of that, but also to catch up with our race winner, Dennis Jordan. Another race victory in the Formula SimRacing World Championship. That, though, was very strategic. Looked like a bit of fun out there, though.
Well, that was, I mean, I don't know if it was fun. It was really stressful. Yet another bad start. So, yeah, it was quite far behind in the first stint. And, yeah, it's tough to really make the right calls then. But I think right from the start we saw that, we had a lot more pace than all the others. So, yeah, we were just saving tires a little bit. But, I mean, it's kind of like a flat-out two-stop, right? So you can't do too much. But yeah, then as the others pitted earlier and earlier, we knew that we were in a good position. It was difficult to get past Spock because, like, I don't know, like, whenever he was ahead of me, like, he didn't really know how to drive. But then once I passed him, he suddenly learned to drive again, which was interesting. But got by in the end. Was good fun. So another win. That's good.
Now, the going into Malaysia, it's a circuit which we know is a tyre wear circuit that's very high. It's a very tricky circuit to keep everything into the rim. Is this kind of we know what you're like as a driver. You like to keep your tyres well within. You're very, very good to keep them in the prime grip level. Is this the kind of race where you're looking at being like, oh yes, this is one that I can do well at?
Yeah, I think if you look at the calendar, like this track in Silverstone, they just traditionally have the biggest wear and deck, or just generally on rFactor, no matter the car. So it's always a bit more important here, but still, even though we are using the 2 times tire wear, it's still the wear's rather low. You need to keep an eye on the deck for sure, but even that in the end was manageable because the tires go quite long, so it wasn't too hard.
Well, cheers, Dennis. Obviously, our race winner here at the Malaysian Grand Prix. We'll move straight on to your teammate because superb 1-2 for Oracle Red Bull Racing eSports. Now, Alex's run to the second place spot wasn't particularly the easiest one, and I think we should probably speak of that incident first. A bit of side-by-side contact with Jan Vosnitzer running through sort of turn 7 and 8, and then, of course, that move from Sander Callas. Talk us through how your mindset was at that point of view and what you thought was possible.
Well, I mean, I must have a look at the replay first before saying anything. But already on the start-finish straight, I noticed that Jan is just using all of his push-to-pass to keep us behind. Yes, well, I guess everyone knows why. And then also his dives and his going on the outside in the S's was so aggressive, which is okay, of course, but it doesn't make much sense for his own race. So I knew it will be tight. I mean, it was quite fun to get side by side through almost half the lap. In the end, he pushed me into the gravel. So unfortunate. I don't think he did it on purpose. It's hard to go side by side through the complete track, of course. But I will have a look. And then the second one, I need to check. I think the contact with Callas was so early that he probably has overshot the corner a bit. But I need to check. Of course, after that, I was quite frustrated. But as Dennis already said, we were so much faster than the others on this track that I knew a lot is possible. And when I saw that even Colin is going really early onto the mediums for the last stint, I knew a lot is possible. And in the end, of course, it's amazing to finish 1-2.
Now, with how the World Championship's working this season, with us sort of not really knowing where we're going to next, is that a positive thing for you, a negative? Do you kind of like the idea that the calendar's a bit of a mystery, despite knowing that the circuit's just the order that we're going to? We don't really know where we're going in a few weeks' time.
I mean, I wouldn't practice the next track before this race finished, so it doesn't make much difference. But I'm just happy that Malaysia is over, because in the past I wasn't really fast here, so I guess the worst track of mine is already out of the way. So I don't really mind what comes next.
Well, cheers, Alex, once again. A second place finisher here in the Formula Sim Racing World Championship. We'll head over to the driver that came into this as the championship leader after winning the opening race of the season. Just third place for Colin Spork this afternoon. We'll roll this one all the way back to qualifying. Just sixth place on the grid. Not a great qualifying, not terrible though. Were there kind of fears that maybe something like a podium was out of reach at that point?
Well, I maybe a bit. I mean, I knew I had great race pace compared to the guys that I tested with. I was driving on lower wings than I think everyone in the field, so I knew if I needed to win it, it was in the race. So just from the get-go, I tried my best to stay as close as possible to the leading cars and just overtook whenever I could, and don't do anything stupid from that point.
Now, how do you go on, tyres and stuff? We've kind of seen that maybe struggling a little bit later in the race with your tyres in comparison. Is there something that you can learn from this to apply in future rounds, or is it kind of just one of those things of maybe adjusting your setup and strategy to go even more sort of aggressive and try and find the speed that the likes of Janis Brakshock were trying to find?
Well, no, I think Janis wouldn't have been able to overtake for like at least me, and also then of course Alex and Dennis. I think we had the right strategy, but I think just their car was very, very good today. I mean, I had a lot of top speed, which kind of saved me till unfortunately one lap too less. But yeah, I just gave it my all, and I think from the situation that we were in, we made the best of it. And I don't think that, let's say, what Janos did would have worked out here, since we had the advantage, I would say, during the race, staying together with all of us and just having some DRS, etc., etc. So yeah, at this time, unfortunately, the Bulls beat Unicorns, but we'll be back strong.
Well, cheers to the podium contingent there. Of course, Dennis Jordan, Alex Siebel and Colin Spork. Nice words from them at the end of the race. Ewan, over for another race, round 2 complete. Another fantastic one, though.
Yeah, I very much enjoyed it. I said it at the start of the day that Sepang and Malaysia obviously produces good racing quite often. I do miss it on the F1 calendar, and I kind of still do, to be honest, after this race, because it was very, very enjoyable indeed. And this season is turning out to be very enjoyable indeed as well. Only 8 more races, but I'm sure they're going to be very entertaining.
I think for one last time, we'll head down to the old virtual pit lane to hear from Cameron Roger once again as to his thoughts of the Malaysian Grand Prix.
Yes, it's certainly a tricky track, but it seems to always give a good race. And once again today, we did that after obviously not being able to race in the World Championship here last year. But as you say, the track's obviously not completely settled yet for the season. But now it's probably time to reveal that the third track of the season will be in Japan in a few weeks' time there. Matsusaka on the 3rd of April. So looking forward to that one. And as we go through the season until August, I think it's going to continue to be a great fight on track, and just a great track in a couple of weeks to continue that.
Well, I think that wraps us up then for round number 2. The Malaysian Grand Prix is complete, as announced there. Matsusaka, a fantastic race circuit to head to on the 3rd of April, which you can catch here, of course, on Formula Sim Racing YouTube, as well as on VCO eSports on YouTube and on Twitch, as well as plenty of other things coming up in VCO. Of course, a reminder that the iRacing special events, the VCO Grand Slam begins with the Sebring 12 hour, and of course, the return round 2, which which actually, to be fair, would be quite good to watch considering it's these cars as well. Round 2 in the VCO eSports Racing League as we go on to rFactor 2 in the Sprint Cup. And obviously, massive thanks to our sponsors in Masita Esports, SimLab and 3D Wrap. From us in the broadcast booth, though, myself, Lewis McGlade, Cameron Roger and Ewan O'Leary alongside me, and of course Felix van Delft bringing in the broadcast. It is goodbye for us, and until the 3rd of April, bye-bye.